to it.
He went to work and never came home.
He gave his life answering a call from people who needed help.
Sergeant Scott Ries, a father, a husband, a hero.
He stood between violence and the people he swore to protect, and he did not step back.
Today, a community mourns, stands together, and says goodbye.
Proud to be a police officer, is proud to be a girl dad, a cheer dad. He was a great friend.
And now we take a live look outside the Northside Christian Church in Wadsworth, where hundreds are ready to pay tribute to a man who gave the ultimate sacrifice. Sergeant Scott Ries, who leaves behind a legacy of service, honor, and love for his family. His funeral is expected to start in about a half hour. You can see the fire truck with the American flag hanging below as people pour in to that church to pay their respects. And this picture tells a story of all the love and support from police all over Northeast Ohio. You can see the lines of squad cars and vehicles, all these people coming to the funeral today to pay their respects. People from all over Northeast Ohio. Sergeant Ries's brothers and sisters in blue are there to remember a man who spent decades, more than 30 years in law enforcement. Many people in the community we spoke to over the past week had a personal connection to him. They are there to say goodbye to a man who was so proud to serve and protect his community. Thank you for joining us for this special coverage of Sergeant Scott Ries's funeral here on 19 News and streaming live on 19 News Plus. I'm Nicole Versansky.
And I'm Dan DeRose. Sergeant Ries was killed in the line of duty Sunday night, rushing into gunfire, trying to protect a mother and her 13-year-old daughter. Our Sarah Goldenberg is live outside the Northside Christian Church in Wadsworth.
And Sarah, I know you've been there all morning. What is the scene like out there?
It's a somber day out here in Wadsworth where family, friends, the community, as well as dozens of police agencies from across the state have come to pay their respects to Sergeant Ries. We have seen police agencies from as far away as Columbus, Cincinnati, and Wheeling, West Virginia. This is a tight-knit family. The brothers and sisters in blue, they protect and serve. They know this is a dangerous job, but something like this happening in the small town of Rittman is truly their worst nightmare. I can tell you the hearse is here right now at the funeral home. People have filed inside to get ready for the funeral that starts at 1 o'clock. And then immediately after, there will be a procession with a lot of these police cars that will be through the town of Rittman. They will be passing by the Rittman Police Department one last time as they make their way to the cemetery for Sergeant Ries's final resting place. Out here today, we have seen a number of police officers, again, filing in with the community. There appears to be increased security. We've seen a mobile command center as well as some snipers on the roof to try to keep everyone safe out here today as they pay their respects to the fallen sergeant. We have learned so much in the past few days about Sergeant Scott Ries. He was 54 years old and a police officer in Ohio for about 3 decades. He was also married to his wife for 29 years, had 2 daughters, enjoyed fishing, hunting, and his dog, and spending time outside. So we are going to continue to be out here as the funeral gets started in just about 30 minutes, and everyone again is coming to say their final goodbyes to Sergeant Scott Ries. Reporting live in Wadsworth, Sarah Goldenberg, 19 News.
And so many people came out yesterday, too. This is the same place where the calling hours were, the same church. They came out there to pay their respects. Everyone who knew Sergeant Ries really had the same things to say, that he was just such a pillar in the community. Yeah. Let's listen.
Scott was one of the nicest people I've ever met. I truly hope people know how good of a man he was and how good of a father he was.
His girls were his whole world. He was always supportive in everything, never missed anything for anyone.
He's a brother in law enforcement, and it's one thing to die naturally, but be taken by somebody like that. we need to show support to the family and let them know that we're here for them.
And to give us some perspective on how a day like today is not only planned but carried out in the emotions, we're going to welcome in Chief John Majoy. He's the police chief for Newburgh Heights, but it goes beyond that. He's also the president of the Cuyahoga County Police Chiefs Association, and he's the District 3 representative for the Ohio Association of Chiefs of Police. Chief Majoy, thanks for joining us. This is a tough day for your profession, not just that community, but this is a stark reality.
It definitely is, Dan, and it hits all of us. But today is really about Sergeant Ries, his family, his department, and how this impacts law enforcement as a whole. It's been a really hard week. I can't imagine the emotions that the department is going through right now. It's just such a tragic event.
You've unfortunately covered a lot of these. You've been to several of these. We can run down the list of the officers we've lost recently. Officer Phil Wagner last July in Lorain, Officer Jameson Ritter the July before that in the city of Cleveland. Then we have to talk about Officer Jacob Durbin of Euclid. That was in May of 2024. There's no answer to this, but this is just happening too often.
It definitely is, and so far what we've seen is, according to FOP, is that there's been an officer shot in the line of duty pretty much every day of 2026. 15 of those have been fatalities, and that's 15 way too many. And so we really need to do something to stop the violence.
What can be done?
Yeah.
What can be done?
Well, I think that there's a better campaign out there for the support of law enforcement. I think a loud minority really kind of sometimes rallies against law enforcement, but I do think that there's still a whole lot of support for us. And I think that that support really builds up law enforcement. And we'll see that today with the support of this funeral. We'll see it today when they bring the procession on. And when Officer Wagner's funeral was last summer, and having gone to and attended there at Rocky Mortgage Fieldhouse, it was just an amazing event to show. And we all get in the cruiser and we drive from I-90 from Cleveland over to Lorain, and every single overpass had flags hanging from it. And fire engines, people waving flags, just waving, and that kind of support just really builds us back up.
I see you getting emotional about it.
Yeah.
And it is always just such a power, just looking at this image right now is just such a powerful, emotional image, and law enforcement is such a family. There is such a strong bond there. I mean, this has to be so personal.
It is personal, and I know when I got the news Monday morning, it just sunk me, and I've seen so many of these, and it really just sinks your heart to a different place, because that could have been any of us at any given time. And we've seen that this is not just isolated to big cities. Rittman's not a very big city, and here we go. And I don't want to say it was a routine call for service, but every call has a little bit of a danger to it. But it gets to the point now where police officers, they really got to be careful just about where they are.
Let's talk about what's going to happen today at 1 o'clock. I've unfortunately, we've seen too many of these. We've sat through these funerals. There are some extremely tough moments when we watch a funeral for an officer. The presentation of the flag to his family, to his wife, the last call is one of the toughest moments I've ever sat through. Walk us through why so many ceremonies, why there is such a tradition that gets followed in the funeral of an officer.
Well, I think that a lot of it has to do with reliving the officer and what he stood for, and that is community, helping other people. And the ritual that they go through during these services is actually good because it remembers them. It almost puts you there. When you hear the last radio call, as tear-jerking as it is and as hard as it is, and they're calling him on the radio and he's not answering, that's what happens. And we lose sight sometimes because there's people behind those radios. There's dispatchers there looking for their officer, not knowing what happened. And so, they're going through a ton of emotions. You got the officers there that were there at the scene that night. And, you saw the video that these officers were hiding behind a cruiser as shots are being fired. They're trying to deploy a drone so they can get an eye and see what's happening. I mean, that's as close as it gets to being there.
And you bring up such a good point. And I can't help but notice in the video, the pictures right now, it's just starting to rain out there. Kind of adding to that just sad, somber mood out there. But as we see all these officers out there today, from all across Ohio, all across the country, from Rittman, tomorrow they're gonna wake up and put on their badge, and they're going to go to work, just like you said, knowing that maybe there was a dispatcher who is working through these emotions, is working through this grief. How do you do that?
Well, I will tell you, it's definitely not easy. And I think that it's really important that we look out for one another. You know, officer wellness is something that early on in my career wasn't a coined phrase at all. You know, we just kind of toughed it up and worked through it. And you know, we can't do that anymore. We really have to watch out for one another and make sure that everybody's okay and support one another, because you know, I don't want to say life goes on. It does, but it goes on in a different fashion. And so it's very important to lift one another up. But I think one of the key things to remember is the amount of support. What you're seeing right there, you don't see that every day, but they're there and they support us all the time. You just don't see that, and that's what really lifts us up.
And I do want to, you know, recognize that today is about Sergeant Ries, and yes, he was a police officer, but he was a husband, he was a girl dad, he was a coach, softball, football. You think of all the people out there whose lives he's touched through coaching. We can all remember a special coach, right, that we had growing up. You know, he's a son, he's a brother, 29 years of marriage, 2 daughters. I mean, he's so much more to his community than a police officer.
And it's important to recognize that, to humanize the badge a little bit, because sometimes the public, they only see that person in a uniform and a badge, and that's all that they know them of. But here we're seeing all these stories about how great of a guy this person was, and coaching and being a girl dad. I mean, that's amazing, and that's the guy he was. And so it's really important not to forget those kinds of things and the contributions that he made, not only through 3 decades of law enforcement, but in his personal life too.
Right, right. And I know we're going to keep talking with you over the next half hour, but I want to talk about the procession here, because there is going to be a long procession from the church to Sergeant Ries's final resting place in Rittman.
Yeah, and they're asking for the community to turn out, and just like Chief said, the meaning of having flags and families standing on the side of the street as the procession. I believe it could take 15-20 minutes to get from the funeral to where he's going to be buried in Rittman, but that support. So if you're in that area, if you're looking for some way that you can say the thank you to the officer, to Sergeant Ries, and pay respect to his family, you can definitely do that. Our Keith, our reporter, is out there. This is the route, so if you're in that area and can come out, but let's get out to Keith, that is standing by on that route, and probably already seeing some community members, even though it is now pouring in that area.
Dan, we're missing the rain right now, but we do see a few clouds coming in. We're on the procession line. We're on Ohio Avenue, directly across from the Rittman police station. We've got just a few cars, police cars out front. I know that Norton here is taking over calls this afternoon, and we've also got some community members lined up in these parking spots on Ohio Avenue right now as well. But if we can zoom in, we can see part of the memorial right outside of the police station. That's just a little bit. Behind that Norton police car, a massive memorial to Sergeant Scott Ries and the entire police station. Really, we also have the flag at half-staff with the blue stripe in the middle. That's for police officers. What's interesting about this memorial out front, I'd say it's about 3 yards by 3 yards square around the base of that flagpole, and you can see just community members coming out. They stopped on their way home to drop off some flowers. There's some flags out there as well. There's many, many candles. We also saw a Parma Police Department badge sitting in the middle of a flag on the ground there, showing you just how far people are coming to show their support for the Rittman Police Department, as well as this community here. We also have a sign out there. I don't know if we're over there beyond the Norton Police car. It says Rittman Strong. It's just one sign out here, and I think it's a pretty strong symbol of how this community is dealing with it. This significant loss for the community. That's just one sign next to a massive memorial of flowers, flags, and candles as well, honoring Sergeant Scott Ries, the entire department here. Once again, this procession goes along Ohio Avenue here. We're near the intersection of Main and Ohio. I did want to bring this up, and maybe we can swing this way. Right over the intersection of Main Street and Ohio Avenue, they do have the American flag draped over the intersection with that fire department. So that's been up for about the last 30 minutes. So you'll likely see this when you come through Rittman if you're trying to find a spot here. Dan?
Thank you very much. As we continue to move forward in our coverage, really honoring Sergeant Ries today.
And Sergeant Ries, he served his community for more than 30 years. But who was Scott Ries? What does this loss mean to Northeast Ohio, really, and officers across the state?
Senior investigator Sarah Goldenberg has a look at who he was and a message from the Ohio Fraternal Order of Police.
54-year-old Sergeant Scott Ries served as a police officer in Ohio for 31 years, wearing the badge to protect and serve. He was a 10-year veteran of the Rittman Police Department. And now, after this loss, a call from the Ohio FOP to end the violence. October 9th, 2023 was a day of celebration for Sergeant Scott Ries and his family. This post from Rittman Police congratulated him on his promotion to sergeant. The caption read in part, his wife Michelle pinned him with his new badge. Before that, he served as a deputy with the Wayne County Sheriff's Office and an officer for the Sugar Grove Police Department in Fairfield County. Now, his loved ones and police statewide grieve his death in the line of duty.
We've been to too many funerals. We've held too many memorials. We've experienced too many losses. And it's time to say enough is enough.
Jay McDonald is the Ohio Fraternal Order of Police president. He called the officers who responded to the emergency in Wayne County heroes.
Bullets are flying and they are going towards the danger as opposed to doing what most of us would do, which is leave the area of danger. And it is one more reason why all of Ohioans need to stand with law enforcement and protect Ohio police, because the dangers are ever increasing.
This July 4th marked 2 years since the line of duty death of Cleveland police officer Jamison Ritter. And July 23rd will mark 1 year since a suspect ambushed 3 Lorain police officers, killing Officer Philip Wagner.
It has been a particularly deadly month, a tragic month, and we must stand with all of the families, the friends, and the colleagues of our fallen heroes, because this the impact that is left from these senseless murders continues to live on, not just this weekend or just the coming weeks, but for years and years to come.
It's a reality officers and their families wrestle with every day. The job they love is a dangerous one. Sergeant Ries continued his police training through last month, taking courses including responding to domestic violence and crisis intervention, according to records from the Ohio Peace Officer Training Academy. Now, his loved ones and police officers statewide mourn Sergeant Scott Ries's end of watch.
We are there to stand by our brothers and sisters every step of the way going forward, but it is a job we wish we didn't have.
The Ohio FOP tells me they will be there for the officers in Rittman and Wayne County to provide them services and support in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead. That will include the National Peace Officer Memorial Service on the lawn of the United States Capitol, a solemn ceremony held each May to honor officers who made the ultimate sacrifice. Sarah Goldenberg, 19 News.
And while today we do focus so much on Sergeant Ries, we cannot forget there are 2 other victims in this Rittman tragedy, Christine and McKinley McWilliams, the mother and daughter who were at that home. McKinley was a student at Norwayne Middle School. Family says she had a bright personality and a kind heart at just 13 years old. She also played softball, volleyball, and loved to express herself through art.
Christine was a real estate agent. Family and friends say she loved her children, McKinley and Landon. And she loved country music. They actually recently went to the Morgan Wallen concert. Her and McKinley actually did here in downtown Cleveland.
Christy was always kind, always willing to help, quiet, but a true friend to many.
I just felt like it was
my duty to share my respects here, honor her and her little girl, because this just doesn't happen here. She was just so sweet, always smiling. Did not deserve, no one deserves this, but she was so undeserving of this.
Tomorrow, Christine and McKinley will be laid to rest. How hard that's going to be for that family. Here are the details for their services. Calling hours are tomorrow from 4 until 7 at the Rittman United Methodist Church, followed by the memorial service starting at 7.
And really, there has just been so much heartbreak with this tragedy, but earlier this week, I don't know if you were watching, we had it live here on 19 News. It was a small moment of hope, which we need, right? K9 Vic, who was also shot when police responded to the home, he was released from the vet clinic. It's really an incredible, joyous, emotional moment, right, for everybody. Let's look.
K9 Vic was actually hit with a bullet back by his hip. I was told by the Wayne County Sheriff that that bullet fragmented and a piece of it was lodged near his spine. They wanted to get him healthy and stable before surgery. It's still unclear if he'll be able to return to duty. The good news, though, is as you saw, he is healthy and seemed to be in good spirits. This was an emotional afternoon. Right after that, if that shot had continued, his handler was getting hugs from officers, and clearly he's a canine officer, but he's a part of that family. When you are assigned a dog, that dog lives with you.
Absolutely, and for that community, I mean, there is so much grief and tragedy, and just a little moment like that to see K9 Vic, it just, I think, represented so much more than what it looked like on the surface. It was a beautiful moment there. All the officers lined up. There was a procession for him as well back home. We want to go now, though, back to Catherine Huntley. She's actually about to go into the church for the funeral. So, Catherine, I know we're not going to see you, but kind of give us a glimpse of what you are seeing inside the church.
Yeah, Nicole, inside the church, there are dozens, and I mean dozens, of floral arrangements. It's a very large church, but you can just smell the scent of all of these flower arrangements when you walk in. So many tokens of support for this family that is going through this unimaginable loss. Now, for about a half an hour now, they've had a slideshow playing of pictures and all kinds of videos and stuff from Sergeant Scott Ries's life, and they are just heartbreaking. All these little moments that we all have, graduations, times with our dad, hunting with dad, all that kind of stuff was documented in these photos, and in every single picture, everyone is smiling. Sergeant Scott Ries seemed like a happy guy. I have spoke to so many people this week who've said Sergeant Ries would be there when they needed him. And the biggest thing I've heard about Sergeant Ries all week is that he was a friend. He was dependable. And coming through on those photos, you can totally see that. Friends were very important to him, but the most important thing to him were his family, his wife, and his girl. So we're prepared for a very emotional ceremony here. We don't believe that the family actually will be speaking during the ceremony, but it definitely will be very touching. Nicole?
Thank you, Catherine, for that update. Now, just hours after that senseless shooting Sunday night, the community had already started to come together to honor Sergeant Ries. Many lit candles, some brought flowers.
And they really came together as an entire community, as a town, to remember an officer who gave the ultimate sacrifice. Madison Green was there for this just tremendous show of support.
It makes my heart just want to burst. I'm so proud of my town, of what they're doing. I think even if it had rained, they'd have been here.
Patricia Watts is just one of the Rittman community members who came out Monday evening to honor Sergeant Ries. Ries making the ultimate sacrifice and losing his life in the line of duty, protecting one of his own.
Beyond words, what this town is doing. And it won't be just today. We will be supporting the family and doing everything we can to help them through this.
Now the community is honoring theirs. Mayor Charles Arnold giving an emotional address to the people Ries served for 10 years in the department.
He wore the city's badge. He gave his life answering a call from people who needed help. He stood between violence and the people he swore to protect, and he did not step back.
Arnold encouraging everyone to not step back from the pain, but find comfort side by side.
On a night like this, being together matters more than any words I can offer. We are here because our hearts are broken.
Although they are broken, Sergeant Ries will live on in those hearts forever.
Right now we want to take a look at the procession route after the funeral. Police are asking people to line the streets for the procession to Rittman Cemetery. That is where Sergeant Ries will be laid to rest.
The procession will proceed south on State Route 94 from the church parking lot. It will then continue south on US 76, where it will proceed westbound on US 76.
The procession is going to exit at State Route 57, so you can kind of see it here on the map. The arrows kind of follow through the arrows here. The procession is going to exit at State Route 57, where it'll head south until the Rittman Road exit. And at the end of the exit, the procession going to turn right, west toward Ohio Avenue. That's where we saw Keith Grant. It's going to slow down in front of the Rittman Police Department.
That's located at 33 West Ohio Avenue. Then it will continue to Metzger Road, where the procession will turn right northbound on North Metzger Avenue. Procession will then turn left westbound on Sunset Drive. Once the procession arrives at the DeCourcy Street, it will turn left southbound to the Rittman Cemetery.
And Rittman police are requesting the gravesite service respectfully be limited to family, close friends, and local law enforcement. I know this is a lot of information here. We do have all of this on our website, though, if you are thinking of heading out, trying to be part of that procession route, just to support the family, to support his friends, to support the police and law enforcement who are going to be part of this procession.
For more on that, we're going to come back to our special guest, Police Chief John Majoy. These have to be tough moments for the family, for the officers. What should we expect heading into this funeral?
Well, I think you're going to see a lot of people lined in the streets with flags and just waving and just celebrating the life of Sergeant Ries and honoring his service to the community for the last 3 decades. I think you're going to see a lot of people, and as we can see, it looks like the weather's starting to clear up, which is amazing. It's a good sign, and I think you're seeing a lot of people out there.
We've got live pictures, our first look at the flag-draped coffin, a salute from the officers standing in front of that casket will now line out. Is there an exact pattern for these, or is it up to each department and up to each family?
I think there's some commonalities between some of these when they happen. I think what they're doing now is pretty standard with respect to the officers from that department honoring their fallen comrade there, as you see, and the flag draped over the coffin, which is a bit of a tearjerker just to see their fellow officer. This is someone that they have worked with for a while, had meals with, been to their house, been to parks, picnics, whatever the case is, and that person's no longer here. And it really hits home hard, with the officers who were there that night. They were, sent to this call for service, and one of them didn't come home.
And let's remember, there were another 4 that were shot. 2 of them were treated at the scene. I believe they were all from the Wayne County Sheriff's Department that had showed up to help with that call. 4 more were shot, 2 treated at the scene, 2 taken to the hospital where they were released. Fortunately, no further loss of life for those 4.
And we're taking a look inside the church. We will be live streaming the service for those of you who want to pay your respects but can't make it out to be able to attend the services. So we will be live streaming the services. They're expected to start at 1 o'clock here. So we see them standing. Let's listen in and let you watch as we honor the life, the sacrifice of Rittman Police Sergeant Scott Ries.
We see the attendees have all stood traditionally. This is probably the moment the family is being escorted into their seats. Can't imagine, Chief, you've had to console family members in situations like this. There can't be words. What do you say to a wife who has just lost her husband who was doing what he was trained to do?
You know, Dan, I don't think there is any words other than to just show their support and respect for that fallen officer. I've been to some of these, and there isn't any one that's any easier than the next one. And so the words that you can offer, just any little bit tidbit of support for the family is just amazing. You know, the whirlwind that the family is going through right now with all the support and everything else. And eventually things quiet down for them. And I think that the ongoing support is after today is even just as important.
And that's absolutely what we're seeing, being escorted by the Ohio State Highway Patrol, family members being led to their seats. And the tradition, Chief, this is one that we'll wrap up on here, the tradition of making sure that from the time he was unfortunately pronounced dead to this ceremony here, his body is never left alone.
That's right. And so what officers do is they'll stand guard at the funeral home 24 hours a day until today happens. And having done that myself, that's the least we can do to honor that officer.
It's a powerful message, and this is going to be a powerful ceremony as we get set to start here. It looks like family moving their way in.
And you see the flag-draped casket. Another, tradition will be when they fold that flag and present it to the family. And you talk about the days ahead, that flag will be such a symbol to the family when they put it in their home and they think of the sacrifice and the life of their hero, of Sergeant Ries. And we were talking about, of course, he's a hero. He's a police officer, but he was a son. He was a husband of 29 years. I saw and read in his obituary he was married to the love of his life, and they had 2 daughters. And this is a guy who loved to fish. He loved to be outdoors and hunt and walk his dog. And he loved to coach, and he was just such a tremendous part of this community. Rittman, it's only a town of about 6,000 people. Everybody knows everybody in this town. No doubt Sergeant Ries had an impact on so many people's lives here, rushing into danger, giving his life for his community that he served for decades, 30 years in law enforcement.
It remains to be seen. I don't believe we have seen a program, a list of speakers today. It is not uncommon to see the Ohio Governor, Mike DeWine, potentially in attendance. I'm not sure if he's there. We could potentially see the Attorney General, Andy Wilson, who's only been on the job about a month. He was appointed to fill out the rest of the term. And it looks like we're going to get our first speaker here. So we'll take you now to the services. First Sergeant Scott Ries.
On behalf of Michelle and the Scott Ries family, I'd like to thank you for coming today to honor the life of Sergeant Scott Ries. Would you bow your heads in prayer with me? Lord, we come before you this afternoon heavy. None of us would have chosen the circumstances that have brought us here today, and yet here we sit. We ask, Lord, that you would meet with us. Many here are hurting. Many emotions here abound. And we come to you, Almighty God, knowing that you are near the brokenhearted and you save those crushed in spirit. And Lord, in this room, in the surrounding rooms, there are many who are brokenhearted, and their spirits are crushed. And we invite you, Lord, to descend with us today, comfort these dear lives, and minister your peace and your grace as only you can. And it's in Christ's name we pray. Amen. At a time like this, what do you say? What can be said to eliminate the hurt? How do we condense 54 years of life into a few moments? How do we distill all that Scott had done in a couple remarks? And how do we recognize the impact that this man had on each life that he touched? We can't. We can't. Yet this afternoon we will attempt to honor Scott Ries and reflect on his full life. And looking at this room, I can't but invite you each to just take a moment and look around. There is a multitude of people that Scott Ries impacted. Perhaps Scott was your son, your husband, your dad, a brother, an uncle, a friend, or a brother in blue. Scott's life impacted many, many others. And Scott wore many titles, as we just listed. One of the things that was easy to note in talking with others, law enforcement and the family, was that Scott was a teacher. I mean that he wouldn't stand here and teach, but he was a teacher. Whether he was helping a new recruit learn the difference between a short form and a full report, coaching, teaching someone the skills of fishing on Lake Erie, or what to look for in a spring turkey woods, or a fall deer woods. Scott was always teaching. And I would invite that we would allow that also. We would allow Scott to teach us one more lesson today just by looking around. One life can impact many, many, many people. May he teach us that lesson yet again today. As we continue this afternoon, I will invite Kevin O'Brien to come and read the eulogy.
Well, again, everybody, welcome. And thank you for the gift of your presence here today. Thank you for showing up for your love and support for Michelle and the girls and the whole family, and your memories of Scott. In times like this, just the simple act of gathering together is an act of love. And so again, thank you for coming. Scott Ries was a big man, well over 6 foot and built to match. He had the kind of presence that filled a doorway before he even said a word. And people who didn't know him will admit now that he could be intimidating clear across the room. But everyone who actually knew him tells the same story with a laugh. Underneath all that size was a teddy bear. That contradiction was the whole man. Because whether he was wearing a badge or standing at the boat launch on Lake Erie before sunrise, Scott spent his life doing one thing: keeping the peace. Not just enforcing it, but keeping it in his community, on his team, at home around the family table. He always wanted things to go smoothly. He wanted people safe and happy, and he was willing to plant himself in the middle of whatever mess was going on in order to make that happen. He grew up in Chippewa the way a lot of kids did before phones took over everything, outside in the woods. There were woods right behind the house where he and his brother Kevin lived, where they spent more or less their entire summer there, unless football or chores called them away. But he was a gifted athlete. He ran track and played football. He even held down first base in men's softball. Somehow quick and light on his feet despite already being the biggest kid on the field. Then in the last game or two of his senior football season, he tore his ACL. And the talk of a scholarship went out the door. But Scott adjusted the way he did to most things in his life. He simply moved on. He moved forward. Summers also meant a cabin at a place called Apple Valley, where he and Kevin kept their own little boat and fished the days away. And that tradition lasted until the family sold the cabin partway through his high school years, when sports and jobs and growing up took over the calendar instead. But it planted something in him for the rest of his life. He found his way to Hocking College down in the hills near Logan, Ohio, to study police science. And it was there that he met a nursing student named Michelle Carpenter. On May 10th, 1997, in her hometown of Logan, he married her, and for 29 years, she stood beside a man who never did anything halfway. He built his career with the same sleeves rolled up seriousness. He spent nearly 2 decades with the Wayne County Sheriff's Office before joining the Rittman Police Department in 2015, where he rose to sergeant and took on the job of training the next generations of officers behind him. He served on SWAT, took on special investigations, and carried genuine pride in seeing the department and the people they served come out better on the other side of every call, a little bit better than they went in. Those who worked beside him reached for words like protector, courageous, and dedicated, though the word his daughters returned to most often without hesitation was simply supportive. Around the department, he was known affectionately as something of a shit magnet. The kind of sergeant who somehow always seemed to be right in the middle of it whenever the shift went sideways. Not because trouble followed him, but because that's where he believed a leader was supposed to be. In the days since he died, neighbors and strangers alike have stopped his family just to say how Scott helped them through a hard stretch of their life. He would look them in the eye and tell them to just keep going and to do better. Whatever he happened to be doing at that moment, he had a way of making you feel that nothing else in the world mattered except for you right then. If Scott had one thing he wanted the officers he led to carry forward, it was this: look out for one another. See the bigger picture and make sure that everyone is supported in appropriate ways. Do what's right, even when it isn't the popular choice, because the job is never about one person. It's about the team and about the community that team has sworn to protect. That standard mattered just as much to him at home. It was important to him that his own daughters learned to do what's right unselfishly, to think of what's best for the team rather than what's best for themselves alone, because he had built his whole life around that rule. That same instinct showed up in smaller ways that nobody kept score of: clearing a neighbor's driveway when they didn't even ask, splitting and hauling wood for someone who needed it, showing up with a truck when a job needed some extra hands. He gave that same energy to the Doylestown Lions Club whenever they needed him, quietly becoming the kind of person a community learns to lean on without ever once making a production of it. That same attention followed him home every night. Scott and Michelle raised two amazing daughters, Abby and Maddie, and he made sure that their childhoods were full of softball fields and whatever else their hearts desired. He loved being a softball dad, coaching Abby's youth teams and Maddie's team through the Ohio Stampede Travel League, which meant summers built entirely around 4 a.m. wake-up calls and McDonald's drive-through on the way to some tournament 3 hours from home, a ritual that the family still laughs about today. Later, you would find him standing on the sidelines at the Chippewa Middle School's football field as a volunteer coach, teaching kids the same game that he loved for so many years. Michelle coached middle school cheer, and at the very same seasons that he was coaching football. And so between the two of them, hardly a Friday night went by that both of them weren't needed somewhere, running a concession stand or hauling equipment for the booster club. Scott wasn't, by his own admission, much of a cheer dad, but he showed up anyway, every single time. His daughters will tell you that he was the kind of father who never ran out of answers. When Abby moved into her first apartment, she woke to find it overrun with bees, 3 of them. And so she panicked and she called her dad, who did not panic, but he told her exactly what to do, step by step, calm as still water, the way he always was when someone needed him to be. That was Scott as a parent, even-keeled, endlessly patient, the person you could call on when your world was falling apart around you, knowing that he would hand you a plan instead of fear. He loved nothing more than the standing invitation lunch that he had with Abby and her fiancé, Alex. Al's was their place, and he showed up every chance he got. He was already looking forward to their wedding, and just as eager to watch Maddie cross the stage with her nursing degree, the way he'd watched Abby graduate. But Scott's love and care grew even wider as he delighted in watching his niece and nephew, Shelby and Trace, grow into the amazing people that they are becoming. Outside of work and family, Scott's whole heart lived outdoors. He hunted deer and turkey every season without fail, and there is, by his family's own count, a deer head hanging in almost every room in their house, not as trophies so much as a record of the hours that he spent outdoors with the people that he loved. He'd learned to hunt as a boy, tagging along with his own father through Saturday rabbit seasons because Sundays were off limits and every other day belonged to the dogs in the fields. He passed that same gift down without hesitation, taking his daughters hunting and fishing when they were small and taking their friends too, along with the neighborhood kids and anyone else who was interested in coming along. Because, as Michelle put it, he simply enjoyed sharing his passions with other people. In recent years, that generosity found a new home on Lake Erie. Scott bought a boat, and the word got around fast. He could have run a charter, but he never once charged a soul. He just wanted the company, and he wanted people to have the experience of being out on the water. Again, neighbors, their friends, friends of friends. It never mattered who. If you were willing to help run the tackle and pull in your limit, Scott had the boat gassed and ready before the sun came up. He took his own birthday off every year in November for a whole week because November meant deer season, and there was no better way in his mind to mark another year than to spend it exactly where he was happiest, out in the woods or standing at the rail of that boat. At home, evenings meant a campfire and a game of Guess That Tune. And if his brother Kevin and nephew happened to be playing music somewhere, Scott made sure that he was there to hear it. He'd taken up smoking meat and grilling with the same seriousness that he brought to everything else. He hosted pizza cook-offs with his friends and traded barbecue tips like trade secrets. He would even cut and split his own wood as much for exercise as for the wood itself, the kind of man who would rather spend an evening watching chainsaw reviews on YouTube than sit around doing nothing. Scott had become, to his family's great amusement, something of a YouTube regular, too, forever queued up with a history podcast or an outdoor show, and his phone was practically glued to his hand, while his family teased him as being their own personal Chatty Cathy, because there was rarely a stretch of the day that he wasn't mid-conversation with somebody. Ask around and you'll find almost everybody has a favorite Scott story, usually something a little ridiculous, a little larger than life because of some fresh piece of shenanigans he'd found himself in the middle of, at work or off duty, that everyone laughing is still laughing about it years later. He had strong opinions about a good meal, too. Al and Cranston's were his two favorite places to take friends, and he'd order the same thing nearly every time, sausage and green beans, though he was just as happy with a good steak or a pork chop the size of your face. And for a man who spent his whole career keeping his composure in genuinely dangerous situations, Scott had exactly two things that could rattle him: bananas and a tomato. Ask his family about the salad that once arrived at Bob Evans with a whole tomato sitting on top of it, and you'll get the same story every time. As Michelle watched his expression start to shift, and she watched it build until she calmly said to the server, "We're good," before he could say a word. He was, by his own household's fond description, a full-grown teddy bear who could stare down real danger without blinking and be entirely undone by a tomato. Family for Scott meant showing up. It meant the pig roast that the Ries clan hosted every summer for years, a tradition that he'd carried north like a piece of home, or the crab boil when the pig roast wasn't in the cards. It meant the handful of summers his own family made to the Outer Banks, where he discovered his love of crabbing almost as much as he loved being on the water at home. It meant building a pond at his house where he and Michelle raised their daughters, because for reasons never fully explained, it mattered to him to have that same kind of stillness close to home. And it meant a dog at his feet. He was a lifelong German Shepherd man, but when his daughter left her golden doodle at the house one visit, the two of them became inseparable, proof that Scott's loyalty never checked a pedigree. And speaking of German Shepherds, I was heartened to hear that Vic is home and recovering, so our prayers continue with him. Yes, Scott filled a room the way big men do, but it was never about his size that people remember. It was about the size of the space that he made for everybody standing in it. 6 foot something in life, and somehow larger than that in every memory left behind. At home, there's a boat that still isn't going anywhere for a while. It sits exactly where Scott always kept it, gassed up and ready long before sunrise, waiting on someone to climb aboard. That readiness was the whole of him, really. The invitation was always extended to neighbors and strangers and anyone who needed a reason to get outside for a few hours. When Michelle was asked what Scott would most want people to hold on to, she didn't have to think long. Value your family. Value your friendships. and spend time with the people you love while you have them. So take the boat out, sit by the fire, do the things that are your passion, and do them with the people who matter to you, and make good choices along the way, because that, in the end, was the only thing that Scott ever really asked of anyone. Not accomplishment, just presence. Not achievement, just showing up for each other, the way he showed up for a lifetime of the people who needed him. Scott spent 54 years making sure that everyone got that experience. Thank you for being some of them. The boat is still at home, waiting for you. The invitation is still open. And carrying him forward now means the rest of us finally climbing on board.
For those of you who knew Scott, there were elements of that that made you laugh. There were elements of that that made you remember a fond story. And for those of you who did not have the privilege of meeting Scott, you just did. Thank you, Kevin. At this time, I would like to invite Ohio Attorney General Andy Wilson to the platform for his remarks, please.
Michelle, Abby, Maddie, Janelle, Kevin, and the entire family. I'm acutely aware that nothing I say from this podium, as a matter of fact, nothing anybody says from this podium or says to you today is going to ease your suffering or lessen your loss. Although the passage of time might help, nothing is ever going to completely fill the hole in your hearts and the hole in your lives that this tragedy has caused. And it's such a tragedy. It's a tragedy for you. It's a tragedy for the community. It's a tragedy for the Rittman Police Department. And it's a tragedy for the profession as a whole. And all I can say to you this afternoon from the bottom of my heart to all of you is that I'm so incredibly sorry for your loss. I'm sorry that you're having to endure this. And we are so incredibly thankful for Scott's service and his sacrifice for his community and for all of us. I've been to way too many funerals for law enforcement officers in my career. And part of that reason, or part of the reason for that, is the unfortunate truth that there are evil people on this earth who are willing to cause pain and suffering and violence on their community and on the men and women who are responsible for protecting that community. But another part of it is that, and this is the part I'm so incredibly thankful for, is that there is an amazing group of men and women like you see throughout the sanctuary this afternoon. Men and women who put on that uniform every single day, and they willingly put themselves in harm's way for us, for our families, for our friends, for our neighbors. Men and women who, when that call comes in, they don't hesitate. When someone is in danger, when someone needs help, when someone is scared, they don't hesitate. They don't wait. They go straight towards the person in need to help, to protect, to comfort. In these times of grief, in these times of sadness, in these times of remembrance, that's what I try to focus on. I focus on the fact that we who do not wear the uniform, we're so incredibly lucky to have you that do. On our worst hour, on our worst minute, On that worst day, the truth is we need you to be at your best. And the truth is that we need you. And that's what Scott was. He was a protector. He was a provider. He was a servant who put the needs of others ahead of the needs of himself. And it cost him everything. It cost you everything. And the sad truth is that we, the community, those who truly benefited from his lifetime of service, man, we can never adequately pay you back for your loss and for your sacrifice. But each of us here today and each of us listening, we have an obligation to honor Scott's service and to honor his sacrifice. And there are several ways that we can do that. First, we can never, ever forget who he is, what he did, and how he served. I don't have to tell you. You know, you heard, you know firsthand. Your dad, your son, your husband, your brother. He was an amazing man. The community loved him. Everybody who knew him, everybody who interacted with him loved him. All of us, we can never stop talking about him. Everyone here who knew him, everyone in the community who knew him, we have to tell his stories. We have to keep his legacy alive through the oral history of who he was and how he served. Future generations need to know his story. They need to know what kind of man he was and what he meant to the people that he touched. The second way that we can honor him is by honoring the profession that he served. Scott dedicated his entire adult life to law enforcement. He loved the agencies he served with. He loved his brothers and sisters that he served with. And he loved the profession as a whole. We can honor him by honoring the men and women who serve and protect like he did. For those of us who don't use the uniform, it's as simple as, look, when you see someone in uniform, just take the time to go up, approach them, and thank them for what they do. It means so much in this day and age. It's also as simple as, look, when you get pulled over for speeding or when you have an interaction with law enforcement, don't make their job harder. Just listen. Don't argue. Don't talk back. And let's support them in all we do. Let's take it a step further. When we hear someone talking negatively about law enforcement, stand up for them. All right? Don't let them get away. Challenge them. Stand up for the profession. To our brothers and sisters who wear the uniform, every time you put that uniform on, do so with pride. Know that what you do matters to the people that we do it for. Know that Scott and far too many before him made the ultimate sacrifice in the service of this profession. And the final way I think that we can honor Scott's sacrifice and his service is for each and every one of us to live every day to its fullest. Man, love, laugh, serve, and lean into everything that life has to offer. The truth is, and it's a sad truth, the truth is that whether we get 54 years or whether we get 90 years, it's too short. All of it's too short. We have an obligation to live life to its fullest and to make the world around us better for everybody that we come in contact with. Scott did that. He loved his family. He loved his community. He loved his profession. And ultimately, he loved others who needed him more than he loved himself. There is no greater love that you can show the world than that. And each of us has an obligation to honor his sacrifice in how we live the rest of our lives. Look, thank you so much for just giving me a few minutes to honor him. And I'm so incredibly sorry for your loss. Thank you.
Now I would invite retired Police Chief Mike Berg to the platform to speak on behalf of Rittman Police.
Today, we gather with heavy hearts to honor the life of an extraordinary officer, a devoted public servant, and a cherished husband, father, son, brother, friend, and colleague, Sergeant Scott Ries. We come together not only to mourn a profound loss, but to celebrate a life defined by courage, integrity, and selfless service. Being a law enforcement officer is more than a profession, it's a calling. It's a commitment to stand between danger and the innocent to serve others, even when the cost may be great. Every day, Scott proudly put on the uniform knowing the risks, yet he answered that call without hesitation. To Scott, his badge represented far more than authority. It represented compassion, sacrifice, and an unwavering dedication to protect the citizens of Rittman and the surrounding communities. Behind the uniform was a man who loved his family deeply, laughed with friends a lot, cared for his fellow officers, and believed in making a difference, one person, one call, and one day at a time. To those who served alongside him, Scott was a trusted partner and a loyal friend. To the community, he was a guardian. To his family and friends, he was so much more. Scott was a loving husband, devoted father, cherished son, brother, and friend. Those who knew him best will remember not only his courage, but also his kindness, generosity, humility, and unwavering character. Today we grieve because a life of purpose was taken far too soon. Yet even in our sorrow, we find strength in the example Scott set. His legacy is not defined solely by the tragic events of Sunday, but by the countless lives he touched throughout his life. Every person he helped, every family he comforted, every crisis he faced with courage, and every quiet act of service, he has left a lasting mark on the community. To Michelle, Abby, Maddie, and the entire Ries family, your sacrifice is beyond measure. While no words can ease the pain of your loss, please know that Scott will never be forgotten. His service and sacrifice have become part of a legacy that will endure for generations. We grieve with you, and we honor your unimaginable loss. Your husband, father, son, brother, and hero left a lasting imprint on every life he touched. His story was shorter than it should have been, but it's not unfinished. It lives on in the love you shared, in the lives he changed, and in the example he leaves behind. To the officers of the Rittman Police Department, the Wayne County Sheriff's Office, and all of our brothers and sisters in law enforcement, today we mourn one of our own. We also renew our promise that Scott's memory will remain with us every time we pin on our badge, answer a call, or stand watch over our communities. Scott's watch has ended, but ours continues, strengthened by the example he left behind. Though we say goodbye today, we also say thank you. Thank you for your courage when others stepped back. Thank you for your compassion when others needed hope. Thank you for your sacrifice made in service to something greater than yourself. May we honor your memory not only with our words, but with lives that reflect the values you embodied: honor, integrity, duty, compassion, and love of others. Your watch is over. Rest easy, Sergeant Ries. We will remember you, we will honor you, and we will never forget your sacrifice.
Mayor Rudy Arnold, would you please come now?
Good afternoon. I'm Rudy Arnold, Mayor of the City of Rittman. I stand here a few different places at once. I speak for a city that's grieving. I speak alongside a family that is in the midst of immeasurable loss. I speak to everyone. Some of you knew Scott your whole life. Some of you are meeting him for the first time today. So let me start with something you may have already seen. This week, the community lined the streets, hundreds of them, in the heat, standing shoulder to shoulder along the route as they brought Scott home. Parents lifting their children up so they could see. Neighbors who've never met, all of them quiet, all of them there. And if you were watching from somewhere else, you might have asked a simple question. Who was this man? Who was Scott Ries that so many people would stop and stand still for him? Let me try to tell you. Scott was a husband, a son, a brother, a coach, a teammate, a neighbor, a friend. More than anything, he was a dad. When I talked with his wife, Michelle, and with the girls, that's what came first. Girl dad. He loved it. You could feel it in the room, just the way they said his name. His mom told me of a softball trip to Columbus for one of his daughter's tournaments. She said Scott snored so loud in that hotel room that the whole family had to get up the next morning and buy earplugs. But that's a dad who was there. The long drives, the ball fields, the early mornings. He showed up, even when it cost everyone a good night's sleep. But I want to tell you a short story about myself now, but it's really about Scott. Years ago, I told a friend of mine, I said, I love you. And somebody overheard it, and it confused them. And they said, why would you say that? You don't mean it. But I did, because there's more than one kind of love. It's not romantic. It can simply be a love of people, a love that wants good for everyone around you. That's the love that Scott lived every single day. A man who grew up beside Scott and played high school football with it said it much better than I can. He told me yesterday, he said, Scott spent 7 seconds protecting me on the football field, and he spent the rest of his life protecting others. 7 seconds on a Friday night and 31 years for the rest of us. You don't give a life like that to strangers. You give it to people you love. So hear me. Whether Scott ever said the words to you or not, he loved you. You don't have to wonder about it. Just look at his life. That's what those people on the street were standing for. It wasn't just for an officer. It was a neighbor who loved them. And when we lose someone like that, the question turns to us. What do we do now? Here's what we do. We pick up where he carried. It's not the badge, but the love. We walk up to the person on the edge of the room. We check on our neighbors. We make the drive to the tournament. We say the words and we mean them. It's how a community this size tries to answer for a loss this big. That's how Scott keeps protecting us. Through every one of us who chooses to live the way he lived. In Scott's remembrance card, there's a poem, and it's for a man who loved the water and fishing and hunting and those quiet early mornings. So many of you knew that side of him. The message is gentle. He isn't gone, just gone ahead, going fishing. So rest easy, Scott. The line's in the water, the sun's up, you've earned the quiet. To Michelle, to Abby and Maddie, to Janelle, to Kevin, to all of Scott's family and friends, to Christy and McKinley McWilliams, and to all of their family and friends, to all the first responders, to everyone impacted by this tragedy. I love you, Rittman loves you, and we're here for you, and we mean it.
When I met with the family, I asked if we could spend a few moments looking at Psalm 23, which is a common passage read at funerals, and I think today is particularly applicable. And we'll find out why here shortly. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The human author of this text is David. He was a king of Israel, and we often see paintings of him as this timid little frail lad playing a harp with little lambs frolicking around. And yet history would tell a much, much different story of who David was. David was a warrior. David was a warrior who did warrior things. And I look in this room, and this room is filled with warriors who at times are called to do warrior things. There was a poem when David was a servant to, at that time, King Saul. Saul had slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. So David was a man's man. In this room, David would be at the front of the line. And I wanted to draw our attention to that because that's who wrote this. Yes, was David a shepherd? Yes, was David a musician? Yes, he was. But he was much more of a warrior than this timid, frail lad we often envision. And I find it fascinating to see how this warrior started this passage for us. He says, the Lord is my shepherd. I find that fascinating. He did not say the Lord is a shepherd, which would have been true. He did not say the Lord is the shepherd, which also would have been true. This warrior said, the Lord is my shepherd. And I find it interesting to think that this man who accomplished all he accomplished wanted initially for everyone around to know that he needed a guide. He needed a shepherd. And we do as well. We can portray a persona that depicts us as being all that. And yet, friends, when we lay our heads down at night, we know we're just men and women like everyone else. But this warrior king wanted us to know that he needed a shepherd, and it was the Lord. He goes on to write, I shall not want. We'll go into that a little further. It won't be an exhaustive study, but we'll look at that phrase of not wanting, being content, being satisfied. We'll look at that a little later. Verse 2, he goes on to say, he maketh me to lie down in green pastures. And before we get to the lie down part, I would ask you, where in the Middle East would you find lush green pastures? Wherever you would find them, it would be due to the skill and the handiwork of the shepherd. And David is recognizing his Lord shepherding him, preparing these green pastures. Sheep are funny creatures. They need many things to be in order for them to be at rest. David tells us here in this passage that God provides all of those things for us to be at rest. He leadeth me beside the still waters. Again, I will rest in his care. I will wait for his provision. Verse 3 is interesting to law enforcement as well. He restoreth my soul. David, this warrior, this mighty man of valor, needed help at times. We do as well. Sheep, particularly in the Middle East, they're hot, and they would seek to find a comfortable spot to lie down. And if there was a swale in the ground, a sheep might lay in it, and as they laid down, flip off of their feet and then not be able to get up. That's what this specifically is talking about with regard to sheep. They could not get up. And this is David helping us see that sometimes, though we're warriors, we need help getting up. And that is not to be overlooked. He leadeth me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Righteous paths, just paths, proper paths. Notice it does not say easy paths or convenient paths. He prepares righteous paths for us, some of which we struggle to understand. But David is teaching us here that that shepherd can be trusted. He goes on to say, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. In a valley, if there is a shadow of death, what must exist for a shadow to be cast? The object itself. So if the shadow of death is there, so is death, somewhere. But for a shadow to be cast, what else also must be present? A source of light. And that is where it goes on to say, I won't be afraid. I will choose not to rehearse the scary noises or the scary objects, but I will focus on the voice of my shepherd. Though death is there, though the shadow of death is there, I will not be afraid because, Lord, you are with me. The rod and the staff, they comfort me. His discipline and protection brings me comfort. There is bounty in the midst of conflict as he prepares a table before me. And it goes on in verse 6 to conclude with goodness and mercy following me all the days of my life. That is amazing. If you would look behind you in your life, is the wake your life is leaving, would goodness and mercy be accurate descriptions of the life you live? David says it can be through his Lord. And then I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. What an amazing promise for those who can answer in verse 1 that the Lord is my shepherd. Even as a warrior, we need picked up. Even as a warrior, we need to acknowledge that at times we need help and we need guided and we need God to make these provisions for us. Told you we would get back to the phrase, I shall not want. What does that mean? It means I shall not be in want. It does not certainly mean that there were never times of need, because David certainly had times of need. It simply meant that he was content with the shepherd's provision for him. He was satisfied with the shepherd's management of his life. And friends, we live in a day where content is a hard word to find an example of in people's lives. We're always longing for something more, something bigger, something better, something more. David is teaching us here that if the Lord is our shepherd, we need not live that way. And one lesson I'm trying to learn, I'd love to tell you I have learned it, but I haven't. I'm working on it, is to be grateful for what I do have and not to be disgruntled with what I do not have. The Good Shepherd has given me everything I need, according to this, everything I need. Perhaps not everything I want, but everything I need. And times just like this event this week are further reminders for me to be grateful for what I do have. 25 years ago, this lesson started for me at a funeral. I was at a funeral of a 13-year-old boy who turned his bicycle in front of a truck and was killed. I knew him very well. And at the funeral, as often funerals have, someone comes and stands and speaks about the deceased. And this individual I did not know stood up, and he said how grateful he was. At that moment, my friends, I was not feeling grateful. He said how grateful he was to have known this boy. I think he was a school teacher, and Nick was a cool kid. He was one of those kids that was just special. And the teacher was so thankful to have had him for 1 year. I was not. I was looking at that as, he's 13. He has all of this life ahead. That was the lens with which I was looking through that event. And even friends today, 54. Some of you might think that's pretty old. I assure you it is not. In my view, Scott had a lot left. In Kurt's view. But rather than focusing on that, I've tried since that day, 25 years ago, to be thankful for what I do have. I knew Nick his whole life. Scott, I knew him when he worked at the sheriff's office. Not well. We weren't enemies, but I won't pretend we were buddies. Some of you are dear, dear friends with this man, family with this man. And some of you, sadly, never got to know him. So I would just humbly suggest that we try to change our perspective at this tragedy rather than looking at how awful it is, and it is. But let's be grateful for those moments, those memories, those events, those irritations that we had with this man and be thankful that we had the privilege to know him. Had the privilege. Some of you knew him for 54 years. I did not. But can we try to adjust our thinking? That we are grateful for what we have instead of focus on the irritation of what we do not. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for being with us here today. We thank you for the privilege of knowing Scott. Our hearts are heavy, are very heavy, because this is not what we would think is best. And yet, Lord, here we are. I continue to ask, not only for now and today, but in the days going forward, the weeks, the months, when missing Scott is such an ache in our hearts, that, Lord, you would reach down and you would comfort those that are hurting and bind up those with a broken heart. Meet with us, wrap your arms around Michelle and the girls and this dear family as they will navigate a new chapter without Scott. Lord, encourage us, strengthen us, we pray, as only you can. May we see you as our shepherd. May we welcome you as that guide and leader of our hearts. In Jesus' name, amen. I will ask all to remain seated for Scott's final call.
Rittman dispatch to all agencies, please stand by for broadcast. Rittman dispatch to Unit 384. Rittman dispatch to Unit 384. Rittman dispatch to Sergeant Ries, Unit 384. Rittman dispatch to all units, negative contact at 384. 384, Sergeant 7. Sergeant Scott David Ries, age 54, responded to his final call for service on July 5th, 2026. Sergeant Ries dedicated 10 years of service to the citizens of the city of Rittman and over 30 years to the law enforcement profession. On July 5th, he made the ultimate sacrifice, laying down his own life while protecting the citizens of Rittman and his fellow officers. Like so many calls before it, Sergeant Ries answered his last call knowing the risks, yet he went in without hesitation, with courage, valor, and an unwavering commitment to those he served and to those who served beside him. He was a true public servant and a true hero. Sergeant Ries, the men and women of the Rittman Police Department, Wayne County Sheriff's Office, and Sugar Grove Police Department will remember you always for your courage, kindness, positivity, infectious smile, and genuine compassion for the citizens you served so faithfully. Your courage and sacrifice will forever live in the hearts of your brothers and sisters in Rittman and agencies beyond. Rest easy knowing your brothers and sisters behind the badge will watch over your family in your stead. Sergeant Ries, your mission is complete. Your brothers and sisters now have the watch. May you rest in eternal peace. 384, you're 37 for the final time. You've got it from here.
I will ask everyone to remain in your seats while our law enforcement officers are dismissed row by row. And would you exit through the main doors? After our law enforcement have exited, our non-law enforcement guests will be released and are to exit through the north doors.
After a ceremony, a beautiful ceremony that lasted about an hour, that end of watch call is always just such a powerful, emotional moment to hear the dispatcher saying, "We'll take it from here."
Oh, you're going to get me choked up. To have the strength to be a dispatcher, to record that, knowing that it's the end of watch call. Your mission is complete. Your brothers and sisters now have the watch. May you rest in eternal peace. That's tough.
And pays tribute to the ultimate sacrifice that Sergeant Ries gave. For about an hour, we heard from the mayor, we heard from the Ohio Attorney General, Andy Wilson, talking about just this man who was larger than life in so many ways. I mean, physically, a big guy, right? But just a teddy bear, as we heard him referred to, but always a man who was selfless, whether he was wearing his badge, trying to help others, whether he was a dad, whether he was, being a brother, being a neighbor. He'd help his neighbors. He'd just shovel their drives. A guy who just wanted to be at the center of keeping the peace. That's what they said. He just always wanted to be there, keeping the peace, making sure everyone was happy and making sure everyone was safe.
And that discussion of the love that he had for his community. This wasn't just a job. Clearly, as we got the description to how he led his life, how he raised his girls, how proud he was the day they graduated from nursing school. Clearly, really just kind of the person that everyone should want to be and strive to be is what was described today. The line that I wrote down, we pick up where he left off. It's not the badge, it's the love that he had for that community, and they'll remember him forever.
And we want to bring you some of those moments because there were so many moments, powerful moments. Wayne County Sheriff's Office Chaplain Kurt Stouffer officiated the services. He was speaking of Sergeant Ries, and he said simply, how do you sum up 54 years of just being an incredible person with such an impact? He said in all facets of his life, as a dad, as an officer, as a coach, as a friend, Sergeant was also always looking for the lesson.
Scott was always teaching. And I would invite that we would allow that also. We would allow Scott to teach us one more lesson today just by looking around. One life can impact many, many, many people. May he teach us that lesson yet again today.
We are going to continue our commitment to remembering Sergeant Scott Ries all the way through the procession to the cemetery in Rittman. The ceremony was held in Wadsworth. Rittman is about an 11-minute drive. We know it'll be longer than that because of the slowness of the procession, but we're going to stay with this because it means so much to so many. Our Catherine Huntley was inside the church for the service. We're going to bring her in now. Catherine, these are tough to cover. They are emotional, but walk us through some of the moments from inside that church.
The church was packed with flowers. It was packed with people. Now, I was speaking with someone who said just inside kind of the chapel hall, that seats 800 people. That was full. Outside of that was law enforcement, significant others, and there were hundreds of them. Well over 1,000 people from around Ohio, law enforcement even from as far as Cincinnati, here to pay their respects to a man who was so beloved by the community. Now, I'm going to take a step out of the way so you can see what's going on. The whole procession, you can see all of those law enforcement partners who are here to escort Sergeant Scott Ries out of the church for a final time. But he was remembered as a man who was always there for everyone he loved, especially his family. During the eulogy, we found out his daughter said he was the kind of dad who simply never ran out of answers. A man always present at cheer competitions, softball tournaments, and every family function. He was a dedicated husband, married to the love of his life, Michelle, for 29 years. Someone his family, friends, the community he served could lean on when they needed his help. His passions were also totally on display today. He was a lifelong passionate hunter and fisherman. He recently even bought a boat on Lake Erie and was often on that boat ramp long before sunrise to spend some quiet moments out on the water. But the overarching message today is live your life like Scott, like Sergeant Ries. Value your family, your friendships, and spend time with the people you love while you have them. Now, the service ended with that extremely emotional final radio call. It's just one of those awful moments that you dread hearing at these situations, at these awful funerals, because they say your watch has ended, but everyone will take it from here. And it's clear that he has made a mark on this greater community that will not soon fade, if ever. So we'll be following this procession, and we'll be sure to have that all for you. Dan?
Yes, Scott filled a room the way big men do, but it was never about his size that people remember. It was about the size of the space that he made for everybody standing in it. 6 foot something in life, and somehow larger than that in every memory left behind.
Just more of the comments that were made, the really touching tribute, and it does give you a chance to know who he was as a person. We know what he's done with his service and his commitment to that community and to law enforcement over 30 plus years, but to finally learn about him as a person is really what today was about.
And such a likable guy. I think we all commented this was a guy you could tell who was infectious. You just wanted to hang around him. A fisherman, a hunter, and he always wanted to, be that friend, that one person that you could count on to be there. I want to go back to those live pictures if we can, because you can see just the hundreds and hundreds of law enforcement officers standing by, paying their respects from all over Ohio, probably all around the country, and they are waiting, Dan. Normally we see here they'll bring the casket out. We'll see an honor guard, the bags or pipes, they'll play taps, and we'll see the salute as they carry Sergeant Ries's casket out of the church.
Yeah, and in fact, the shot as they had pushed in earlier, you could see what I believe is probably the Cleveland Pipes and Drum Corps. They are synonymous throughout Northeast Ohio. They are incredible, and they have played it, unfortunately, when we have these around. I think about when we had Durbin, I believe Officer Jacob Durbin, or actually I think it was Jameson Ritter, when his funeral was downtown back in July of 2024. They played such a monumental role here. As we wait for family to come out and they will proceed with this. We're going to stay with this because it means so much to the community, to Northeast Ohio. It is our commitment to honoring Sergeant Scott Ries and his family. So we're going to stay with this. We're going to bring back in Police Chief, Newburgh Heights Police Chief John Majoy. He's also the president of the Cuyahoga County Police Chiefs Association. He's the District 3 representative for the Ohio Association of Chiefs of Police. Chief Majoy, we sat and watched this ceremony. Did anything strike you as particularly heartfelt, or what will stay with you?
I think every minute did, really, looking at it with the speakers and the things that they said. With Attorney General Andy Wilson speaking about law enforcement and honor and respect in law enforcement, and just getting to know who Scott Ries was. Those are really key highlights. And to top it off at the very end, it's really gut-wrenching when you hear the dispatcher calling for Unit 384 on the radio, and 384 is not answering. And I put myself in those shoes. I've seen those calls at funerals before, and that just is so gut-wrenching, because that evening there were dispatchers that were calling on the radio looking for their officers, and this is a priority 1 call. There's shots fired. You saw the body cam with the shots going off in the background, and these officers, they didn't waver at all. They ran to the gunshots, not away from the gunshots. And so this is an amazing hero that laid down his life, and it was an amazing tribute that they gave for him in remembrance of him.
Andy Wilson, the Attorney General, he's only been on the job about a month and a half now. This is unfortunately the first officer that he has lost under his tenure. He's considered the state's top cop. He is the state's top attorney, and gave some really some poignant comments to everyone. To the next time you see an officer, the next time you see someone in law enforcement, walk up, shake their hand, and say thank you for the job that they do. And then he went on to say, if you get pulled over, if you have a traffic stop, don't make their job harder. Have you noticed this, Chief, in the past 5, 6, 10 years? Has there been an attitude shift in the way you are treated out there on the street?
I think that there's, it's about 50-50. There's some that just, they're less than compliant, they're less than cordial. And, one of the things that we try to strive upon is if you don't agree with something that happens on the street, there's a manner in which you can address it. There's courts, there's processes, but to be combative, because things just cultivate themselves into a situation that we don't want to be in. We don't want to get into a use of force situation. We'd rather have compliance. And it's okay to disagree with law enforcement, and that's fine, but when it rises to a different standard, that's where it becomes a problem. And so I appreciate the message that Andy Wilson has sent, because it resonates quite a bit, and we would certainly like that to happen, because situations don't need to rise to that situation. There's a solution to every problem. You just got to be able to go and take the time to find it.
And I notice, you're wearing your mourning band over the black band over your badge. And it is tradition that that's what officers do when a fellow officer is killed, and killed in the line of duty. Do you put yourself in these officers' shoes, knowing that tomorrow, as we talked about, they're going to have to put on their badge and continue to do their job, knowing the dangers, putting their lives at risk? And then you think of the wives, the husbands, the family at home who's watching this, knowing that's my person tomorrow. Do you put yourselves in their shoes? And it just has to be, Chief, so difficult.
It is difficult, and the answer is yes, we do put ourselves in the shoes of that officer. But when we do, it goes beyond just the uniform and the badge. It goes to our families, it goes to our friends, it goes to our lives outside of what we do, because people see us as a badge and a uniform, but that's really not who we are. We're still a person. We have families, we have lives, we have hobbies, things that we enjoy doing when we're not working. And so it's really hard not to put yourself in the shoes of that fallen officer and pray that it is never you. And tomorrow, the officers are going back to work. The Rittman Police Department, these officers are going to be back on shift. They're going to be working day, afternoon, night shift together. The dispatchers are going to be giving out calls for service. There'll be traffic stops, 911 calls, emergencies. And so they're going to have to carry on, and it's going to be difficult for them. But they will certainly not forget the life that Scott lived and what he brought to the profession for 3 decades. And we hear today just what kind of amazing person he really was outside of being a police officer, which is amazing.
And you think of the support for the Rittman Police Department, what they're going to need moving forward. And just on a day like today, we saw Keith Grant, who is outside the police department, the procession. We are standing by. If you're just joining us now, we have been watching the funeral for fallen Police Sergeant Scott Ries, and we are waiting for his casket to come out of the church, and there will be a procession to the burial site in Rittman, and they're going to pass by the police department. They'll slow down and they'll make a stop before the Rittman Police Department. But today, so the Rittman police officers can be there, another department will step up. I believe, did they say it was Norton? There was another police department that will step up and man that department just so they can attend this funeral. And that's just part of the brotherhood, part of the sisterhood, part of the support in the police department.
Yeah, you kind of forget that that has to happen. I mean, wherever you work, if you had someone, a coworker that passed away, you all want to go to the funeral and support that family, and you forget about a police department still having to cover that city. And so you do get coverage there. Chief, I wanted to ask you about the pass-by. Nicole was just talking that when the procession starts, as it makes its way through Rittman, they will slowly stop at the police department. Walk us through why that's such an important deal.
Well, it's your second home. It's where you're basically, when you're not with your loved ones, you're at work, and this is your second home, and this is like your second family that you're with. And so the members of that department, you know, they care so deeply about this officer and what happened to him. So it's a really nice final tribute, if you will, as sad as it is.
Okay, we're hearing something may have happened in the crowd out there. We need to get to Catherine Huntley.
Yeah, it appears there's been some sort of medical emergency in the crowd. Obviously, lots of people on hand who can handle this. We did just see EMS bring their gurney out to assist this person. Many people ran over. Not sure yet what is happening. We're about 50 feet, 100 yards maybe from there. So I will keep you up to date. I mean, there is a bit of a pause because there have been so many people inside, like I mentioned earlier. So it is taking a little bit to get everybody outside and everybody prepared. But it appears we're in a bit of a holding pattern right now, and hopefully this person's okay. I mean, it's very hot out here, very muggy. So hopefully they're doing okay. But obviously I'm keeping an eye on what's happening here.
Catherine, I don't know if you can hear us. Could you tell, was this a person who was outside the church or who was inside the church?
Yes, outside the church. All of a sudden, two people ran over and said, medic, medic, and then two people with the fire department ran past. Some people are walking away now, so the correct people have this in hand right now. But yeah, somebody outside the church had some sort of medical situation, and they are working on it as we speak.
I mean, that's understandable. It's a warm day. They're in dress uniforms, which I'm assuming are very, very hot. It's very possible that someone may have just succumbed to the heat and the situation of it all.
And think of the traumatic moment for so many people who are here, the emotions at play here. So certainly, you know, we'll continue to keep an eye on what's happening here. But as Catherine mentioned, there is a sense of calm still outside. There are not people running around, so it seems like the situation, whatever it may be, has been handled. Certainly the right people are there to be able to handle any kind of emergency situation from someone in the crowd, as we kind of still stand by here and wait for the procession to begin, carrying Sergeant Scott Ries to his final place of rest.
If you were going to have a medical emergency, there's probably no better place and people around you than the first responders that are attending this funeral. We'll continue our coverage. We're going to stay with this as a way to honor Sergeant Scott Ries. We're going to stay with the procession, still waiting for the casket to be brought out of the church to be loaded into the hearse. There are times, and we've seen this in the past, that we've seen caskets loaded into maybe not just a hearse. We've seen them put into SWAT vehicles.
And he was part of the SWAT.
Yeah, we know he was a member of the SWAT team, so that'll be interesting to see what they do there. We also have our chief investigator, Sarah Goldenberg. She is standing by outside the Rittman Cemetery where his body will be laid to rest. Let's check in with Sarah. What kind of, are we seeing crowds? They've asked people to line the route from Wadsworth to Rittman. And it looks like we're waiting to get...
Trucks were set up, ready to go.
Yep.
Ready to go and to watch this final procession coming by, where they will pass by the Rittman Police Department for a final time for the sergeant. Take a look behind me. We are waiting for this procession here to make it to the Rittman Cemetery, where I can tell you clouds are rolling in, kind of matching the somber mode out here today. And It's really going to be a powerful show of support from what we saw at the church as people make their way over here. Here at the cemetery, it's going to be only close friends and family, as well as local law enforcement. So they're going to try to keep that kind of small. But we will be here. We'll be ready for when that procession moves in. And everyone pays their final respects to Sergeant Ries. Live in Rittman, Sarah Goldenberg, 19 News.
Sarah, thank you. And I want to go back and talk about some of the great stories we heard, because today is about Sergeant Ries and remembering not just how he died, the heroic yet tragic way that he died, but how he lived, the 54 years that he lived, you know, as a coach, as, you know, as a husband, as a father, as a girl dad. Loved coaching on the softball field. I loved some of the stories that we heard about helping his daughter. His daughter had a bee infestation right in her apartment, and I think the pastor said all but 3 bees. But Dad, she called Dad right away, and Sergeant Ries, calm, cool, told her exactly how to handle the situation. But just, you know, that dad who always had the answer, was always calm, and would always help.
Yeah, I enjoyed the story. They were talking about how unflappable he was in dangerous situations. He was just centered and everything. But the one thing, the 2 things that could make him, that you could get him to react to, were bananas and tomatoes. And when I heard that, I was like, what are we talking about here? Apparently the man did not like bananas or tomatoes, was out to eat, brought a salad. There were tomatoes all over it. His wife could see that he was starting to lose it, and she told the waiter, we're good here. We're good here. It has been tremendous. Rittman Mayor Rudy Arnold speaking about what an impact Sergeant Ries had on the community, and that Rittman will be there to support all who knew and loved him. They're going to pick up the torch. They're going to stand with his family in his stead, because after all, that's what Sergeant Ries would do.
A man who grew up beside Scott and played high school football with it said it much better than I can. He told me yesterday, he said, Scott spent 7 seconds protecting me on the football field, and he spent the rest of his life protecting others. 7 seconds on a Friday night and 31 years for the rest of us. You don't give a life like that to strangers. You give it to people you love. So hear me. Whether Scott ever said the words to you or not, he loved you. You don't have to wonder about it. Just look at his life. That's what those people on the street were standing for. It wasn't just for an officer. It was a neighbor who loved them. And when we lose someone like that, the question turns to us. What do we do now? Here's what we do. We pick up where he carried. It's not the badge, but the love.
It's not the badge, but the love. And one of the chaplains said today, it's that lesson, it's that moment that everyone may have had with Sergeant Ries. Make that be your lesson, your teaching moment moving forward. Be like he was, be selfless, be willing to lend a helping hand. And that was really the message, just about carrying it forward now.
And we know that the procession is going to get underway soon, taking his body from the chapel there in Wadsworth to the cemetery in Rittman. They're asking the public to line the streets. We're going to check in with Keith Grant now, who's actually live for us outside of the Rittman Police Department, probably where there will be the largest gathering. People wondering, where should I go? How can I pay tribute to him? Well, standing outside of his police station as his body goes by will be one way. Keith, what are you seeing now?
Dan, there's quite a few people lining up now. We've been here for a few hours, about 2 hours. There were already a few cars on Ohio Avenue where we're at right now in front of the police station then. And then as this has been going on, of course, throughout the afternoon, more and more people parking. We can see right behind me people dressed in red, white, blue, definitely fitting for today's service, waiting for this procession to come down right in front of the Rittman Police Department. You can also see behind there, I was talking about this earlier today, this memorial is quite touching, to be honest. Just look at how big it is. I'd say it's about 3 yards by 3 yards at the base of that flagpole, the flag at half staff right now with the blue strip. in the middle there for the police department. But the mementos in there are interesting as well. We've got flowers, candles, different little things. We also saw a Parma police badge in the middle there, just showing how far Sergeant Scott Ries' death has really reached this Northeast Ohio community. You can tell that a lot of these were dropped off almost as people were heading home from work, that they wanted to make sure that they fit that paying their respects into their way throughout this week. And then, of course, today, people lining the streets, waiting for the procession to mark in front of the police department. We talked to quite a few of these people lined here. Some interesting stories about why they're all out here. I talked to a couple of different women who were sitting. They set up their chairs on the corner. They said that they're not from here, but they grew up here. And being a part of this procession, watching it, is a part of their grief process. We know that this has really hit the community. 3 people, of course, impacted in this shooting that happened on Sunday. So it's really been tough on the community throughout this week, and I felt that talking to the people here. They said this is part of the grief process of dealing with this community-wide impact. Each of them saying, you know, they talked with Sergeant Ries at some point. We talked to one man who says it wasn't always good, but he came out here because the community shouldn't experience something like this. But he wanted to show his respects for the procession. Once again, that'll be coming down Ohio Avenue where we're at here. We'll have that live for you as it comes in front of the police department. But once again, a lot of people out here to show their respects and keep it as almost part of the grief process for themselves. Dan?
Keith, thank you for that. We're going to bring back in Chief Majoy here, who's been kind enough to help us through this. And Chief, you've been through this, unfortunately, too many times.
Unfortunately, and you've been part of these processions. What is it like to be in a squad car as you see people lining the roads with their flags? I know we're going to see the fire truck ladders with the flags draped over the street. What is that like to be part of the procession?
Well, I can recall the ones that I've been to, and when you get in the car, you don't have any music on. It's just quiet, and you're just kind of self-reflecting a little bit, you know, about the officer's family, you know, and what they're going through. But once you get moving and you see all that support, it kind of brings a little bit of warmth to you, because you see all the people, you know, children holding up signs, waving flags, you know, the flags coming off of bridges, and the fire trucks with their big ladders and a huge flag draping off of it. It really sends a strong message. And I recall the funeral of Andy Dunn back in 2011, a Sandusky police officer killed in the line of duty. And as we went down Route 250 in Sandusky, there was a huge billboard with Andy's face on it. And you know, having known Andy and helped taught Andy, and is a great young police officer. It was just such an amazing tribute to see the road just lined with pictures and just waving things and thanking him. It's very impactful.
And you hope for the family.
Right.
That's what they experience, that in their time of grief and mourning and loss, that they at least find comfort in a community and strangers who are supporting them and who are praying for them.
I think there's times when you don't realize how many lives you've actually touched, and the people that you've impacted over the years. And when you see some of these, like, you know, with Officer Wagner from Lorain PD a year ago, and the amount of lives that he impacted, and how successful he was in his young career, you know, and the 2 other officers that were injured in the line of duty, you know, the people that they impacted, you don't see that. We don't see that on a day-to-day basis in our jobs. But when this happens, it really just refreshes you. And
I bet that the family this week has experienced so many of those stories about their dad, about their husband, about their son, about their brother. I never knew that.
Right.
He did this, he helped this person, and hopefully that just fills them with just so much love, just knowing, you know, they know what a great guy their dad, their husband, their son was, but just to hear all those stories and to keep saying his name and to keep hearing those stories, I think that's going to bring them so much comfort in the days ahead, just to keep his name, saying his name, and to keep his memory alive.
We heard the story from the one young woman that we interviewed, I believe the day after it happened, where she needed to be with her husband at the hospital, but she needed help with the kids, and so not only did he come and stay with her kids, he started doing the dishes. I mean, he was helping out at the house, like while he was watching. That's, you know, talk about above and beyond the call of duty. That's the kind of guy this was.
Right, and you don't normally hear stories like that, you know, and again, I think that in the days, weeks, months, and years to come, there's going to be stories about Scott Ries that comes out, and his family will be able to keep that legacy going in their heart, knowing the amount of people that he helped, because something just as small as that, you know, he probably doesn't even do dishes at home, and, you know, then his wife sees that, and it's like, wait a second, you know,
Right,
so, I mean, it's just a tribute to what an amazing guy he was, and so, you know, God bless the family, because they're going to continue to hear these stories and keep his legacy going.
Before we hear the end of Watch again, I want to take a live look at the chapel just to make sure we're not missing the procession. We're standing by for that with that many people inside that church. It's going to take a while to get everyone out and then to get his casket brought out that church, brought out from there. But as we wait for this, it is always the toughest part of an officer's funeral, this end of watch call. It represents a dispatcher trying to locate Officer or Sergeant Ries in this situation. It is tear-jerking. It is just incredibly emotional. Take a listen now to the end of watch call for Sergeant Scott Ries.
Rittman dispatch to Sergeant Ries, Unit 384. Rittman dispatch to all units, negative contact at 384. 384, Sergeant 7. Sergeant Scott David Ries, age 54, responded to his final call for service on July 5, 2026. Sergeant Ries dedicated 10 years of service to the citizens of the city of Rittman and over 30 years to the law enforcement profession. On July 5th, he made the ultimate sacrifice, laying down his own life while protecting the citizens of Rittman and his fellow officers. Like so many calls before it, Sergeant Ries answered his last call knowing the risks, yet he went in without hesitation, with courage, valor, and an unwavering commitment to those he served and to those who served beside him. He was a true public servant and a true hero. Sergeant Ries, the men and women of the Rittman Police Department, Wayne County Sheriff's Office, and Sugar Grove Police Department will remember you always for your courage, kindness, positivity, infectious smile, and genuine compassion for the citizens you served so faithfully. Your courage and sacrifice will forever live in the hearts of your brothers and sisters in Rittman and agencies beyond. Rest easy knowing your brothers and sisters behind the badge will watch over your family in your stead. Sergeant Ries, your mission is complete. Your brothers and sisters now have the watch. May you rest in eternal peace. 384, you're 37 for the final time. You've got it from here.
Live pictures now as we try to gather our emotions here. Live pictures out front of the North Side Church in Wadsworth as we continue to wait for the casket of Sergeant Scott Ries to be brought out. We can see the Cleveland Drum and Pipes Band waiting. They're often involved in ceremonies such as this, and it's just very emotional. And when we hear them strike up, it'll be close. We'll know that that's, and we have to be close. You see the law enforcement lined up all the way to the left side out of this church. There are hundreds in attendance as we wait to start the procession to take 384 home.
And if you were watching earlier, there was a bit of a pause because there was some sort of medical emergency in the crowd. So the delay is waiting to be able to take care of whatever the medical emergency was that happened. And then the understanding is the ceremony will then continue. But I would imagine we'll hear taps, which is always incredibly tear-jerking. You know, the final call of the day on military bases, signaling lights out, signaling it's time to go to sleep, as they lead Sergeant Ries to his final resting place at Rittman Cemetery. So what we're waiting is for the casket to come out of the church, and there will be a processional, and the processionals are usually just awe-inspiring, Dan, as police officers, hundreds of police officers from all over. I think Catherine said she saw some from Cincinnati, from Columbus, but no doubt there are some from other parts of our country who will make their way, again, as we mentioned, past the Rittman Police Department, his second home. It will slow down there, and there are people, as we saw, Keith Grant is standing by, already standing by on the side with flags in hand, ready to pay their respects to Sergeant Ries when he passes by, and then ultimately to Rittman Cemetery, where his private burial ceremony will take place.
And we are here with Police Chief John Majoy from Newburgh Heights. Chief, when we had the funeral for Officer Phil Wagner, that would have been July of last year, I've never seen the amount. You were in that procession. That was just incredible. That was... and perhaps it was the nature of how that crime went down, that it was a setup, an ambush. We remember how horrific that was and the bullets that were flying in that situation. These processions, and why is it, I know this is going to be a softball of a question, why do officers come from all over the country, and some departments have guys specifically for this?
Well, I think it's just to pay tribute to the officer, but it's also to pay tribute to the profession. And sometimes this brotherhood, sometimes a little bit lonely, and so we have to rely upon one another when times like this happen. And so coming there and showing the love and support and respect for that officer, his family, the department, his family and friends, I think that's really important. And having been to a number of these, I try to do my part, as do a lot of our colleagues. The same thing at Officer Wagner's funeral. There was from Pennsylvania, squad cars from there, and so in New York, and so which is amazing to show the amount of support for the profession. And so that was probably one of the longest processions that I've seen. We were halfway to Lorraine and they were still at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. That's how long it was. I think they were saying it was nearly 10 miles long,
right,
which is amazing.
Yeah.
But when we talk about this, and we talk about Philip Wagner, when we talk about Euclid Police Officer Jacob Durbin, when we talk about Cleveland Police Officer Jamison Ritter, I mean, this is happening far too often. I believe the statistic that 19 Investigates had is an officer is shot almost every single day across the country. How does that stop?
It's a really tough question to answer, because I wish I had the answer that would just solve all the problems. I think that we need to gain a better understanding, better communication. Like Andy Wilson said, if you have contact with law enforcement, we can resolve a matter, type of a thing.
We're going to take a listen in now as the Cleveland Pipes and Drum Band have started as his body is being brought up.
Detail. Order. Order. Detail. Hurry. Hurry.
Right, and you heard the Cleveland pipe and drums, just an incredible sound as the officer's body was carried from the church into the hearse, which will carry him to his burial site. I anticipate now the officers will get into their vehicles, into their squad cars, perhaps there's motorcycles, and the procession will begin. And that procession, normally it would be about a 10-minute drive. However, with the pace that they'll be going, I anticipate it'll be at least 20 to 30 minutes. The procession is going to leave here, as we mentioned, pass by Rittman Police Department and slow down there where there is a crowd already standing by. There is a ladder truck, fire truck standing by at the intersection there, hoisting the American flag over that intersection. It's just a beautiful sight, and hopefully it brings comfort, as we say, not only to Sergeant Ries's fellow police officers, but also to his family and his close friends as they pass by, as they see this, tremendous outpouring of support.
And we see the members of law enforcement, first responders, I believe that's a firefighter in the white hat. These are men and women who know each other very well, and this is a tough day for all involved. A chance to say hello, a chance to grieve together, to be together as they are now making their way to their vehicles to start the procession. Again, as Nicole said, it's generally, I looked it up, did a quick map search, it's generally just about an 11-minute drive from Wadsworth to the city of Rittman, but it'll obviously be a lot longer than that as they now get to their vehicles to start the procession. Our Catherine Huntley, and Scott will be able to tell me if we have her. We're going to go to Catherine Huntley. Catherine, you're there at that site. We've just heard from the Cleveland Pipes and Drum Band. Pretty emotional out there today.
Yeah, it's just bagpipes that you never want to hear. Bagpipes are at so many of these functions for happy things, but hearing them in this situation is just devastating. It's heartbreaking. There are so many tears throughout the crowd, people really taking their time to kind of speak with each other, give each other hugs, kind of talk about what they just saw, but now they're all going to be getting in their cars and going to the cemetery. But this was just, I mean, one of those things that you never want to have happen. And we've talked and talked about this. It's just happening way too often. That's a sentiment I have heard from so many law enforcement people that I have spoken to over the last week here. I mean, they just are so devastated and frustrated that yet again they're having to come to a church and pay their respects and support a family of another lost law enforcement officer. Sergeant Ries was clearly somebody who gave everything and truly made the ultimate sacrifice for the greater community that he loved. But it sounds like he was such a wonderful man and somebody that all of these men and women here in this super tight-knit community were so happy to come out and pay their respects to.
Catherine, thank you. And this is a look at that procession route, the route that the procession is going to take, again, passing by the Rittman Police Department on its way to the funeral site, the Rittman Cemetery. Sergeant Ries, as we've been talking about, I mean, dedicated nearly 3 decades of his life to law enforcement. We're talking about joining the Wayne County Sheriff's Office. He served there, Wayne County Sheriff's Office, from 1996 to 2015. Then he was with the Rittman Police Department, promoted to sergeant. He served on SWAT. He served on the local SWAT teams and helped with special investigations. 3 decades this man dedicated to giving his life and serving his community just to keep the peace, as we heard. He wanted to keep the peace. He wanted everyone to be happy. He wanted everyone to be safe, and he gave his life doing that.
And I wanted to read, and not just on my phone here, I wanted to read the statement that came out from the FOP, Fraternal Order of Police of Ohio. This was from President Jay McDonald the day after it happened. His statement was, "Enough is enough. The deliberate and targeted violence directed at the men and women who protect our communities must end. We have attended far too many funerals, stood through far too many memorial services, and comforted far too many grieving families. Every attack on a law enforcement officer is an attack on the safety of the communities that they have sworn to protect." Clearly not mincing words. Again, that was from the president of the Fraternal Order of Police of Ohio. So let's bring Chief John Majoy back in on that sentiment. You have the FOP saying enough is enough.
100% agree with Jay McDonald's statement there. It's been a really tough road seeing these acts of violence, senseless acts of violence against law enforcement, and he really summed it up well, because it is attack on our communities, on the safety of our communities, and it does need to stop.
We heard the Ohio Attorney General, too, Andy Wilson, kind of echo that statement when he gave his remarks at the funeral today, and he said, the next time you see a police officer, not only thank them for their service, but also, if you're pulled over, make their job easy. Don't give them a hard time. So we're seeing that message again today through the message in the funeral.
I think what we need to really consider is getting a louder majority of people versus a louder minority of people, meaning that, you know, some of the anti-police rhetoric, we really need to kind of change that a little bit, because we're not bad people. We're out there protecting and serving, and yeah, we make mistakes from time to time. It happens, but again, that's the minority of law enforcement, and so we really try hard each and every day to make an impact on safety, and so it's really helpful, you know, and as law enforcement, we try to thank people for cooperating with us. And you know, when I teach law enforcement about traffic stops, one of your main goals on a traffic stop, they'll say, well, it's safety. Of course it's safety, but really your main goal on a traffic stop is to get a thank you. Not thank you for the ticket, not thank you for pulling me over, making me late to where I'm going, but thank you for respecting me no matter what it is that I did. And so that needs to be a goal of law enforcement, which we do. And so we need to get that back from the community when we interact with people, and we need people to just be compliant. And if there's a disagreement, there's a manner in which it can be solved. And like Andy Wilson said, cooperate with law enforcement. We're begging you, just please cooperate with us. If you don't agree, that's okay, but let's try to solve the problem together.
And as we see the procession start to leave the church there, you can see the ladder truck. This is just one of several we've seen along this route outside of the church here, draping the flag over the street as people flow out of the
Yeah,
church and
it
head
looks
to the
like
cemetery.
these are just the people, the civilians that were in attendance, friends and family that were in attendance. The official procession has probably not or has not started yet. We did see that Sergeant Ries's casket was put into a white hearse. We had speculated that we've seen these in the past, that sometimes they'll use maybe a SWAT vehicle, but that's not the case here. He will be escorted by, we are seeing some law enforcement get out there on the road to start this, maybe to help block off traffic and get ahead of the procession itself. But this is going to be a minute, and we're committed to this. We're about to start our 3 o'clock news. So if you're just joining us, if you were tuning in to see our normal 3 o'clock news, we have been in continuous coverage honoring the life of Sergeant Scott Ries and his funeral today. The funeral was at 1. We started our coverage really at noon as we have been committed to this because he did pay the ultimate price. And Chief, that's something I wanted to ask you. There are not a lot of Sergeant Rieses. There are not a lot of you who have decided to commit your life, to put on a badge and put your life on the line every single day. That's what you were saying, that we need, that the minority of people who are bashing police, they need to get quieter, and the people who serve and the people who support need to get louder.
I agree with that, and for the loud minority, maybe get to know us a little bit better and try to learn more about what we do, because a lot of times what we see is that if a citizen has a complaint against an officer, a lot of times they just don't understand why the officer did what he or she may have done, why they took the certain action that they did, and so that type of communication can help bridge that gap. But I do agree with you that we need a louder majority of people to start stepping up and continuing backing them, not just in times like this, but all the time.
And if you were watching the funeral, it was about an hour, but we learned so much about who Sergeant Ries was outside of the law enforcement. And as you see, it looks like the procession is about to start with the motorcycle units beginning the procession. Let's listen in.
Are getting in position, what they will do is they will be on either side of the hearse. They will escort the hearse. It is again back to this ceremonial tradition that his body is never left alone, that he is guarded the entire time. So they are getting into position so that when the hearse pulls up, they will begin this procession. But again, they will be leaving Wadsworth and heading for the community of Rittman. So that's where we're at with this.
And then immediately following the hearse, normally you see the Rittman Police Department officers, those squad cars represented first right behind the hearse, and then you'll see fall in police, hundreds of police officers, dozens of police officers from all across the country and our state.
Chief, what does it mean when you see this? And I'm assuming Rittman doesn't have this. This is not the Rittman Police Department motorcycle units. These are units from all over the area as well.
It just goes to show the ongoing and unwavering support of the Brotherhood with officers showing up who didn't know Sergeant Ries at all and may not have even known anybody from Rittman, but it doesn't matter because they're there to support the profession. They're there to support his fellow officers, and they've got to go back to work at some point, tomorrow, the next day, whenever it may be, and they need to continue to hold the line, as you heard earlier. And so I think it's a really tremendous thing to see. It kind of makes, gives you goosebumps a little bit to see all the lights and everything else, and just the unwavering support that this officer and this agency is getting.
The respect. I mean, Rittman's a town of 6,000 people. So again, it goes to show, this happens everywhere. It's not just big cities. This is a small community, and we heard so many people who say, I can't believe this has happened, this tragedy has happened here.
Well, I think that it kind of opens the eyes a little bit because there isn't really any place that's immune to violence, and so not that we have an overwhelming propensity to violence, but as we've talked about before, the amount of violence against law enforcement we've seen already in 2026, with 15 gunshot fatalities of police officers across the country. And so the degree of support is just one other layer to give officers to know that you are doing the right thing, that the overwhelming majority of people do support what you're doing each and every day.
And to point out that this is the 3rd July in a row that Northeast Ohio has had to bury an officer. Sergeant Scott Ries today. Last year it was Officer Phil Wagner from Lorain who was ambushed. He passed away on July 24th, 2025. Then we go back to 2024 when Cleveland officer Jamison Ritter was killed on the 4th of July. And then just a few months before that, we had Officer Jacob Durbin in Euclid. We have lost 4 officers here in Northeast Ohio in the last 3 years, and unfortunately, there is something about July that has been a bad spot for officers passing away, giving their lives in the line of duty.
And when you heard so much, I was talking about this earlier, about who Sergeant Ries was beyond the badge. Just the guy that you want to be around, the guy you want to have as your friend. Just absolutely incredible, selfless, a true hero. The procession is starting. Let's listen in. Welcome you in if you're just tuning in to 19 News now at 3. This is special coverage honoring the life of Sergeant Scott Ries from the Rittman Police Department, killed in the line of duty. His funeral was at 1 o'clock today. You are watching now the procession leading Sergeant Ries out of the church to the Rittman Police Department, where the procession will slow down and make a stop, and ultimately to Rittman Cemetery, where Sergeant Ries will be laid to rest. And Dan, you were talking about the motorcycle officers surrounding that hearse, not leaving an officer's side.
Yep, making sure that that officer is protected and guarded from the moment that he was killed all the way through the moment that he is returned home at the Rittman Cemetery. You saw multiple motorcycle units on either side of the hearse, as well as the limousine carrying his family. They are also protected. Officers on both sides. We saw, I believe, 2 family vehicles being escorted by officers very well from all over the state, maybe even the region. Just an incredible show of rolling thunder support for Sergeant Ries and his family. These are vehicles, obviously friends and family being escorted, and shortly behind them will be the procession of law enforcement from all over the country. I believe we have Keith Grant. He is live for us outside of the Rittman Police Department. It'll take a few minutes for them to reach Keith, but they've asked people to line the streets. So they'll be headed your way. Keith, what are you seeing now?
Yeah, Dan, we have quite a few community members lining the streets right now to support and honor Sergeant Scott Ries. We have, of course, the law enforcement officers supporting Ries' family and Ries himself and the police department, but also the community here. And what's interesting is when we're talking to these people that are sitting along the streets, standing along the streets, some of them are from Rittman and some drove from out of town because they wanted to show their support for Ries and the entire community of Rittman and the police force. We talked to a few driving from the Akron area, some driving from Cuyahoga Falls. That's quite a good drive to come support this community on the other direction from them. We're on Ohio Avenue right here, right in front of the Rittman Police Department, so the procession will go right in front of the police department. For some perspective here, this is downtown Rittman. At the end of Ohio Avenue, we have the Morton Salt facility. That's quite notable for this community as well. But you could just see people, some of them holding flags, quite a few of them, it looks like, with the blue stripe for the police department. That flag is also a half staff in front of the police department with the blue stripe there. And then I'm going to touch on the memorial again that sits at the base there. Look at it. It's massive, and there's been little bits added since today, since we got here about 11:30 this morning. There's candles, balloons, flowers, little mementos. We even see little stuffed animals to show some sort of support that people in this community are thinking about Sergeant Scott Ries' family and the Rittman Police Department. Another interesting point in there, and I think it just stood out to me, was that there was a Parma police badge showing that what happened on Sunday has touched people throughout Northeast Ohio. They feel somehow connected to show their support for here. I talked to one woman who lives up the street north of here. She grew up in Rittman, though, and she said that she just had to come here and be a part of the procession because this is a part of the grieving process. She knows this community. She grew up here. She went to school here. And to see this now, years after she left, she felt like she had to be here and let this be a part of grieving for her own community. It was really inspiring to talk with her. We've talked to some other people as well. This is part of the grieving process, and the community is really showing out. This is a bright spot for them to see the community here in this darker light, Dan.
Absolutely great show of support there to see people showing up, and I'm sure that those numbers will grow as the procession gets a little closer.
It's just always such an emotional, powerful thing to see people holding flags. Children, people young and old, and I know at that intersection is another fire truck, ladder truck, with a flag draping over that intersection, and you just hope that that brings the family of Sergeant Ries so much support and so many feelings of love as they make their way through that procession. So the family will make their way, the hearse will make its way through past Keith and ultimately to Rittman Cemetery, and that is where we find 19 senior investigator Sarah Goldenberg, who's standing by outside the cemetery.
Yeah, Nicole, we are here at the cemetery where we are going to see the closest people to Sergeant Ries show up here in an intimate setting where they will say their goodbyes at the final resting place for Sergeant Ries. This will be his family members, his friends, those in local law enforcement, as the procession will end here, and those in the community, in the law enforcement community, will say goodbye as they now have a more intimate ceremony that will be happening over here at the cemetery. So again, Rittman here, this is a small town, and I've spoken to people who tell me this has been a really tough week. The motto of this town is a small town with a big heart, and that's what we have seen out here today, with people lining the streets, the fire trucks, and people from the community all kind of pulling together to show their support, to show this family that they are not alone in their mourning and in their grief at this moment. What a big impact Sergeant Ries has had on this community. They are giving support to the family, and they will need it in the coming days, in the weeks, months to come. They are remembering Sergeant Ries for his kindness, for his service, and of course today the ultimate sacrifice that he made to keep his community safe. People are really thinking of him in this moment. Again, the family and friends and all those law enforcement officers in the surrounding community that have been deeply impacted by what happened the other night in Rittman. I'm live in Rittman, Sarah Goldenberg, 19 News.
Sarah, thank you. And if you are just joining us now, we have been speaking with Newburgh Heights Police Chief John Majoy. And I know, Chief, your perspective is far different than anything that Dan and I could be able to give to this. You've been in these processions before. Explain what it's like to be part of this.
I have, and as well as hundreds of my colleagues the same way. And so it's a somber moment. It's hard, but there's also a kind of a beacon of light at the same time when you see all the support, you see the signs, you see the flags, you see people waving and just recognizing Officer or Sergeant Ries rather and his commitment and his sacrifice, but also to his family as well. You know, when we saw the procession started, there was a nice line of cars with family members and just showing, hey, we support you too. It's not just law enforcement, but we support law enforcement's family as well.
You're not alone.
Correct.
I think we can show the live pictures. The squad cars continue to file out of the North Side Church there in Wadsworth, one after another. An official count, I would say minimum 100 is what we saw earlier, but one after another they file out. Chief Majoy, you explained this, that this is a brotherhood for the people who are just joining us, just tuning in. What is this symbolically? It's more than just symbolic. What is it to show up to a department you've never been to, a city you've never met? Some of these have probably never even heard of Rittman, Ohio before.
Well, I think the key word to this is unity, and there's unity amongst the brotherhood of officers, the men and women in blue who go out there each and every day to protect and serve, and this is their opportunity to unite and show support. And as I said, to the officer's family, but also to that department, their police chief, their other officers, their elected officials, the members of that community. It's not a huge community. Everyone knows one another. And so everybody in that city is impacted to some degree. And so to be able to go there and send a message that we support you, we're behind you, and you know, we're sorry for your loss and we're here for you, I think that sends a huge message.
And we talked about this earlier for those of you who are just still tuning in. I mean, this is something, though, that as an officer, you're part of this procession today. You're burying a brother in blue, a coworker, a friend. Yet tomorrow you're going to wake up and you're going to put on that badge and you're going to potentially run into danger again. It has to be so mentally, emotionally challenging. How do you do it?
It is for officers, but I think that we kind of keep our eye on the greater good, and that is what we're sworn to do. And if you ask law enforcement officers, why did you get into this profession? And some of the answers are, I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to make the world a better place to live. I wanted to help my community. I wanted to give back. And those are some of the core values that officers have. And so that's what keeps them going each and every day when you see things like this. Because when an officer is killed in the line of duty, whether it's in Rittman, Ohio, or anywhere in the continental United States, it impacts all of us in law enforcement. And we see this all too often. But we're still committed and give our unwavering support to that mission.
And that's what Sergeant Ries, it seems like, was the epitome of a police officer. He was a man who wanted to serve. We heard so many amazing stories today during his 1-hour funeral. We talk about a man who was, we kept hearing, just larger than life, right, in stature, but truly kind of a softie on the inside. Listen to one of the speeches from earlier today.
Yes, Scott filled a room the way big men do. But it was never about his size that people remember. It was about the size of the space that he made for everybody standing in it. 6 foot something in life, and somehow larger than that in every memory left behind.
As we're taking a live look now outside of the police department, you can see they're getting set up for the arrival of Sergeant Ries's coffin, his casket, and the hearse to go by his final stop at the Rittman Police Department, waiting for it there. And I think we can even go back live to the church where there are still filing out of, where cruisers are still filing out to complete this session. There is the police department, and you can see the people who have come out to support this, and they're all along the procession route, which is actually quite lengthy because of the ceremony being held in Wadsworth, and they're going to lay him to rest in Rittman, normally about a 10-minute drive by highway. So we'll wait and look for the live pictures here. Just an incredible, some of the lighter moments in that ceremony when we were learning about Sergeant Ries, where I loved the line that said that he loved going. There were 2 favorite restaurants in Rittman that he liked taking people to, and they said he normally ordered the same thing, but occasionally he would get a steak or a pork chop the size of his face, just a big steak or a big pork chop. And it's those moments that, you know, none of us, you know, watching here knew Sergeant Ries, but you kind of got the feeling after the ceremony, you knew a little bit about him.
It seemed like just a likable guy, a guy you wanted to be around. But Chief Majoy, I know you mentioned this kind of humanizes the badge. It's not just a police officer. This is a police officer who goes home, hopefully, to a family every night. Sergeant Ries didn't get that opportunity, but police officers, you have a wife, you have children. I mean, you're human.
Right, and it's the human side that's behind the badge. And as I said, sometimes you see people, that's the police officer, but we're more than that. You know, we're humans, we have loved ones, we have hobbies, we like to fish and hunt and do things like that. And, you know, Sergeant Ries is kind of like the poster child for that. Right. I mean, he lived life to the fullest, as it seems, had an amazing family, did a lot of good things during his career, and did it because he loved doing it. And so it speaks volumes for him, but also speaks a lot for that department, too, to stick around and want to continue that dedication for that length of the time that he did. It's really amazing. Yeah,
he just turned 54 in November, and if you weren't watching, let us fill you in. He's a girl dad, coach softball, coach football. He's a neighbor who, if your driveway needed to be plowed, he was the guy who would do it. You didn't even have to ask him. He just got a boat. He loved to fish on Lake Erie. If you wanted to join him in the morning, just come on, open invitation. Loved to hunt, had been hunting since he was a little boy with his dad, and loved to barbecue, right? Loved to smoke meat. So these are just the stories in between all of that. We really got to see him come alive and learn more about the way he lived, and not just the tragic, horrific, senseless way that he gave his life, that he died.
And he did, and so, you know, again, it humanizes what he did and how he enjoyed his life above and beyond putting on the uniform each and every day.
Yeah, the stories, and one of the big words that just kept coming up is teach. He would teach, whether it was as a coach or as a father, he would teach, and when he would talk, people would listen because he was bigger than life. He was a big man, but his presence and what he taught and his love for everybody was even bigger than that.
Yeah, and they were hoping that that would be the lesson moving forward, that whatever he taught you, whatever lesson of selflessness and being there to help someone in need, that you would carry, you know, that message forward.
And I wrote this down. He said, we pick up where he left off. It's not the badge, it's love. I thought that really encapsulated sort of the message of his ceremony today. And clearly, Badge 384 left a major impact on that community as we continue to see vehicles perhaps might be wrapping up shortly. And Catherine Huntley is right there for us. Catherine, can you see the end of the squad cars, or are there still a ton more?
Dan, they're actually coming from around the back of the church. I cannot see, well, rather, I believe, nope. I cannot see the end of the line now. I mean, this has been truly incredible. I mean, devastating, heartbreaking, but also inspiring to see just how many officers have taken time out of their days to come to this community and support Sergeant Scott Ries, support his family, and pay their respects. There's been sheriff's departments from all over Ohio, small counties, large counties, Van Wert, Hardin counties, tiny municipalities, large municipalities. I mean, it has just It is astounding just how many people and how many law enforcement vehicles are here, well over 100. Like I said earlier, there were well over 1,000 people in the church today, and many of them standing room only for law enforcement. Law enforcement was packed in near where I was sitting, and everybody was standing up shoulder to shoulder. That's just how many people were in this very, very large church. So this has been truly a day that this community will never ever forget. Truly a situation that has forever changed the community of Rittman, but it's very clear that Sergeant Scott Ries has made a permanent mark on this greater community.
And I hope that just makes his family so proud. So proud of him, because we were talking earlier, there are probably so many stories, so many lives that Sergeant Ries impacted that his family never even knew about. That was just the kind of guy he was. And I hope that the family feels so proud of the work he did and the man that he was, just by seeing these hundreds of officers out there, may not even have known him, but know the kind of guy he was, know the work he did, know the ultimate sacrifice that he paid. And they just came to drive a processional route. And it seems so small, but it is so big. It is really so big. And these moments are just so beautiful to see.
And I want to ask Chief again, but some people are just joining us, and we've got Chief John Majoy from Newburgh Heights here, but he's much more than that. He's also the president of the Cuyahoga County Police Chiefs Association. He represents District 3 for the Ohio Association of Chiefs of Police. So, and I could go on and on. There's even more titles. This is my connection to the Amber Alert Committee. He's president of the Northeast Ohio Amber Alert Committee. That's how dedicated you are to the community. I want to go back to, as we wait for that procession to get to the Rittman Police Department, people may not have heard you explain this earlier, why this move. We see it, unfortunately, when an officer passes away. When they leave either the hospital, on the way to the funeral home, they stop at the police department. And then on the way from the funeral to the cemetery, they stop at the police department. What is that? Explain the symbolism there.
Well, I think the easiest way is to show that this is the officer's second home, that the amount of hours that the officer spent there. And Sergeant Ries, with over 10 years on the police department there, you know, that was his second home. That was his second family. And so to go and drive by there and allow, you know, those folks there that you see on the street right now to pay tribute to the officer at his second home where he worked at, and the line of commitment that he had for over 10 years at that department, and 30 years combined, which is an amazing career. And so having the ability to do that and show the honor, the love, and respect for this officer is truly an amazing feat. And so I think that you'll see a nice show when these cars, and you can see they're starting to come by right now, to slow down or stop there, just to, again, give that moment of appreciation for that officer and his commitment.
And it looks like we're seeing some of the first motorcycle units make their way up Ohio to be able to pass through by the police department.
They do have to, these are the advanced vehicles that, you know, we've all seen this in processions where they have to get up to the next intersection to get it clear, to get the vehicles out of there. It looks like they pushed through that semi and a couple of other vehicles, and really clearing the way now for the rest of this procession. It still might be a moment to get, but when we do see that hearse make that corner, we will let you just sort of absorb the moment because of, as you just heard from Chief Majoy, what it means to that area. And we're seeing the second wave of this as our camera looks like we're going to get into position here. So in fact, as they get closer, let's just take the moment as they arrive here shortly at the front of the Rittman Police Department. Let's take a listen in.
They might be stopped just past the.
Yeah, so we're gonna jump in here. Obviously, this procession is going to come in waves. Our Keith Grant is there. Keith, you saw the first part of that procession roll by. I'm assuming all was quiet. The people that are lining the street just simply observing the powerful moment that is about to take place.
Yeah, Dan, it was relatively quiet as there were quite a few motorcycles that you saw and some law enforcement police vehicles that went by. But it was all attention on the middle of the street there as those police vehicles and motorcycles drove up on Ohio Avenue here. They came down from the Morton Salt Facility and headed towards downtown, and then they'll follow through on Ohio there. So they're going up the hill if you're familiar with this area in Rittman. But you can still see some people just showing up along the streets here for this procession. You can start to see a lot more further down the line as well. We're right on the intersection of Main and Ohio in downtown Rittman, where there's been a few people here since at least noon this afternoon, so well before the funeral, waiting for this procession. But you just saw a few motorcycles, that first wave for the procession, some motorcycles and law enforcement vehicles as we wait as they come around that corner down the hill here, Dan.
Keith, thank you. When we saw the motorcycles kind of pull off, they were a little bit in front of the hearse when they left the church. The next wave that we are expecting is the hearse. And Dan, as you mentioned, you can probably explain the reason why. There are motorcycles that will be flanking both sides of the hearse and the family's vehicle, a minivan that is riding behind it.
Well, Chief, you can explain better than I can what is, again, the thing that strikes me, unfortunately, about police officer funerals is there are so many different ceremonial tributes that happen in every single one. Walk us through what is the meaning when we see the hearse come around the corner. Why is it flanked by officers on both sides?
I think it's mainly just to show that the officer is protected and that they are with him and his family as they take his final journey to his final resting place and stopping by his second home and being flanked by the motorcycle units. And as you can see there's still units that are leaving the funeral, the church, if you will. And so I think it shows a great, vast amount of support for that officer and his family. Standing honor guard, from the time that he passed away until the time that he's at his final resting spot. It sends a huge, huge message to his family that he was loved, he was supported by all of law enforcement.
And we're now 20-some minutes past when this procession started, and we still see vehicles, law enforcement vehicles, leaving the church, moving underneath the flag, the ladder, the fire truck ladder holding that flag over the street there. And to your point, Chief Majoy, an officer is never left alone, and we're talking someone is always with him at the cemetery, at the hospital, at the medical examiner, the funeral home, the church. Someone has always been, an officer has always been by his side.
Right, and they should never be left alone, and it just sends a really strong message. And when these happen, there's never a shortage to go and say, well, who wants to do this next? It's a matter of officers that are lining up wanting to do this and take their 30 minutes or more to do this. And that might mean that your shift is from 2:30 in the morning to 3 in the morning, but there's never a shortage of officers that are willing to step up and do this for their brother or sister in blue.
Yeah, I don't think people at home truly understand that brotherhood portion of this, that body is guarded every second until he or she is finally laid to rest. Like you said, Nicole, whether that's at the medical examiner's office, at the funeral home, his body is constantly guarded. And that goes, again, that's why you see, we will see the hearse. If we get that shot back from downtown Rittman, they've got to be getting close, and we've got to be way over 200, maybe 300 vehicles, police vehicles in that procession as we see even more and more people come out from. That shot showed us earlier there are businesses lining this Ohio Avenue, and you have people who have come out of their offices, their workday, to pay tribute to honor Sergeant Ries as the motorcade the procession has to be getting close here to making this corner.
Yes, certainly the procession is a powerful moment, but I want to go back to parts of the funeral, the end of watch. The final dispatch call is always just so emotional to hear dispatch calling the officer, calling Sergeant Ries, and not hearing anything, hearing silence. And then you hear a beautiful tribute to Sergeant Ries. And then the final words, we've got it from here. Rest in peace. This is a live look at the cemetery, the Rittman Cemetery, where Sergeant Ries will rest in peace, his final resting place. And you just saw some of those motorcycle police officers passing by, making their way to the cemetery here. We are standing by waiting for the hearse to pass by the Rittman Police Department. We're expecting that, I would think, at any moment now. This is a live look down Ohio Avenue. Just up the hill here from where you're looking is the police department, a second home to Sergeant Ries, and that is where the procession is going to slow and stop as people who are standing by on the sidewalks there, as we've seen, they're holding flags. There are children, there are adults standing by. They will salute him, they will honor him, they will show their respect to a man who served his community. Sergeant Ries has been in law enforcement for 30 years. He was with the Wayne County Sheriff's Office, and then in 2015 joined the Rittman Police Department, was promoted to sergeant. He was on local SWAT teams. He was with special investigations. His obituary reads, his courage, compassion, and quiet leadership left a lasting impact on everyone who had the privilege of serving alongside him. Quiet leadership. I feel like those were so many, selfless, quiet, humble, yet so willing to give the shirt off his back, to give his life for his community, for someone who needed it.
Chief, that's got to be tough. You do it every day. The men and women of your department do it every day. When you put on the badge, when you put on the uniform, you don't know. You just don't know what could happen that day.
You really don't, Dan, and we've seen before, years ago, there was always dangers in law enforcement, but, we've seen officers, they were putting fuel in their cruiser and they got shot, or they're going up to assist a disabled vehicle and they get ambushed, or in here they go into a call for service and they get ambushed. And so you really just don't know which call is going to be that call. And so when folks wonder why officers act a certain way, not that they come in strong-armed or anything else, but rather their approach is sometimes tactical when they make a traffic stop, only because of safety reasons. And we've seen just a roadside traffic stop, we've seen record drivers get hit and killed because of motorists not paying attention. So you might see a police officer make a passenger side approach for their safety, because it's always safety first. Going home is the most important thing for officers, and so we really emphasize that on officers with the training that we do, with community relations, trying to connect with the public and send that message out that safety is paramount.
And Chief, if you don't mind me asking, your family on a day like today, your wife, your children, this has to be very difficult for them to see too.
It is, and having gone to many of these, it does. It hits home a little bit, because that could be any of us at any time. And we, of course, never want it to be, but it could be. And we don't know when we're walking out the door to leave for work that if that's the last time we're walking out that door. And this is what happened to Sergeant Ries that day. That was the last time that he said goodbye to his wife when he left for work that day, not knowing that he would never return home, which is tragic, which is awful. But also, to change the tune a little bit is to look at the support that he's now getting, the lives, the quiet leadership that you mentioned. This was an impactful officer with 3 decades of service. And, as I said, the stories will continue to go, and the legacy that he's leaving with his fellow officers and those who he worked with for a while, with the Sheriff's Department and now Rittman, the impact that he had there is tremendous.
As we take another live look at Rittman Cemetery, where Sergeant Ries will be laid to rest, will spend his final days. Chief, as you were even saying that, and we see, looks like the beginning of what this will be, this procession, there are not a lot of professions not Nicole or I, not everybody here at the station. There are not a lot of professions where when you walk out that door, you don't know if it's going to be the last time. We think of firefighters, we think of first responders, we think of police officers, but to have that selflessness to sign up for a job that on any given day you may not come home, all so that you can protect and serve a community, so that you can be a part of people's lives and to make a community better. There is no bigger definition of selflessness than that.
I would agree with you, Dan. It is selflessness and contributing to something that's bigger than yourself. And this is what public safety does, and police, fire, EMS. And probably the most overlooked part of the criminal justice system is our dispatchers, who hardly get enough credit for the things that they do. They're sitting in a room and is waiting for that call. And I can't imagine what the dispatchers that evening are going through. They had to dispatch this call and how it came out, and they're sending multiple units from multiple departments, and all of a sudden, you get an officer down call, you get shots fired call, and they're calling in on the radio, and you hear shots firing in the background, and here's a dispatcher in a room trying to control a situation and stay calm and bring in all the resources that they need to bring in to help alleviate this situation. And so it is hard, and it is a calling, it is a commitment, and it is something that's bigger than all of us, and that is to try to make the world a better place.
And we've got Keith Grant standing by outside the Rittman Police Department. And in fact, Keith, I think we're going to have our moment here. Keith, walk us through what you're seeing now.
Yeah, we're starting to see quite a few law enforcement vehicles pull around the corner there on Ohio Avenue, lights flashing, so we can assume that this is going to be another wave or a large part of the procession here. They'll make their way up Ohio Avenue here, and then they'll cross right in front of the Rittman Police Department. It's actually just starting to sprinkle a little bit. We also have the hearse in there as well in this procession line, but we'll let this be.
Very powerful moment as the hearse carrying the body of Sergeant Ries made a brief pause in front of the police department there, as well as his family, both protected on both sides by motorcycle officers as they make their final pass, as Chief Majoy has been saying, past his second home and his second family. You think about he serves with those people every day. and he sees them every day. That is a powerful moment we just witnessed.
Absolutely, 100%, Dan. I agree with you. And you know, the community's standing out there supporting him, supporting the police department, because again, you know, tomorrow comes, the next day comes, the next day comes, and those officers got to go back to work. And you know, the 2, 3, 4 officers that they have on shift got to continue to protect and serve. The emergencies don't stop. And so the unwavering support that the public has given and that community has given has been tremendous.
And even an outside police department is coming in to man the Rittman Police Department today, just so all of those officers can attend the funeral of their fellow officer.
Right, and this is what law enforcement does. We work together, and we saw this in Lorain. You know, when the fallen Lorain officer, there was the Erie County Sheriff's Department actually went into, in Lorain County Sheriff's Department, you know, they went into Lorain Police Department, or the city of Lorain, so their officers could attend the funeral of Officer Wagner. This is what they do.
And in the procession you're watching now, we've seen family, this is close friends of the officer, and then following behind these vehicles, there were about 20 minutes, hundreds, Dan, of squad cars, vehicles from all across the country, from across the state. This procession is going to be miles and miles long.
I don't want to get too far out on the limb here, but I do just want to point out that right at the start of the funeral, 10 minutes before the funeral, it started pouring rain outside of that church, and we're seeing some cars here with their wipers on. We heard Keith Grant talk about how it's been dry all day and suddenly started to rain here at the police department. I know it's coincidental, but it does make you think.
Yeah, so true. But I hope that in seeing this, and Chief, I know you said you've been part of these processions before, but I hope the family, when they see complete strangers lining the streets here, holding flags in honor of their husband, of their dad, of their son, of their brother, I hope they feel so much pride and so much love, not only today, and I hope that continues, Chief, in the days and the months ahead.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that, and I hope that they have an opportunity to watch this newscast and the dedication of your guys' station here to support law enforcement. It's really amazing. It's unwavering. And on behalf of law enforcement, we thank 19 News for that, because that too sends a really strong message. And so back to his family, I do hope that they have an opportunity to see all this after the fact and show his legacy. And you said pride and you said love. Those are two really big things. And I hope that they have that opportunity for years to come, you know, when their children, you know, have children and great-grandchildren, his legacy lives on forever. And then they're able to see how impactful this officer was in his 30-year career.
Chief John Majoy with the Newburgh Heights Police Department. We certainly appreciate your vantage point here. You've been a vital asset to our coverage today. I want to thank you for joining us.
I appreciate the opportunity, and again, kudos to your station for spending the last almost 4 hours covering this. It sends a really strong message of support to law enforcement, and coming from law enforcement, I can tell you firsthand, it really does. So thank you for that.
We thank you for being here, and we thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. I think we're going to take a break, and we'll come right back as we wait for that procession and the hearse to finally make its way to Rittman Cemetery. We'll be right back.
We are continuing our live team coverage of the funeral of Rittman Police Sergeant Scott Ries. If you've been following along, the funeral was today at 1 o'clock. We've been watching the procession now leading from the church to Rittman Cemetery, where Sergeant Ries will be laid to rest.
The service was absolutely incredible. It was everything you would want. We all got to learn who Sergeant Ries was as a person, more than just the badge. In fact, what I felt was one of the most impactful deliveries, the line at his service, "We pick up where he left off." It's not the badge, it's the love. He had a love for that community, more than just being a police officer, a love for his family, for his wife, for his daughters, and that was the message that was sent today. We're actually going to go to Catherine Huntley. She was at the funeral at the Northside Church in Wadsworth, where she's been reporting this afternoon. Catherine, wrap this up for us.
Yeah, Dan, you really hit the nail on the head. Everybody would love to be remembered like Sergeant Ries was today. This was a truly devastating day and just fascinating to learn so much about him, about his passions, but most especially the love he had for his family and his friends. There were well over 1,000 people inside this church today. I mean, the chapel alone fit 800 people outside. It was wall-to-wall law enforcement significant others. And let me tell you, we just finished up here with that procession of law enforcement vehicles. My photographer, Eric, who's been on the job for more than 30 years, says he has never seen a procession that long. I grew up in Summit County, and there were so many places I have never even heard of who were here to support and to make sure that Sergeant Ries, the Rittman Police Department, and especially Sergeant Ries's family and friends felt that support today, and they're going to need it moving forward. All week, this community has just come together in a huge way, and this was a perfect example of that here. Dan?
Catherine, thank you. And Sergeant Ries, let's catch everyone up here. He was killed in the line of duty on Sunday. He was responding to a shots fired call. We can't not say that a mother and her daughter were also killed in this tragedy. Christine McWilliams, her daughter, 13-year-old McKinley McWilliams, were also killed on this Sunday. The suspect also died, and that is who we are honoring today, Sergeant Ries, who put his life on the line, rushing to be able to help, being ambushed and killed in the line of duty.
And that was the call that came out on Sunday, that there were shots being fired at that home in Rittman, and that's what led all of those officers to the home. And as soon as they showed up, they were taking fire. It was an ambush, so to speak, and all total, 4 other deputies were hit. They all survived. It was Sergeant Scott Ries with the Rittman Police Department who did not. Live outside of the Rittman Police Department now is Keith Grant, where Keith, that procession has to still be going past the police department because it's got 200, 300, 400 cars involved in that.
Dan, yeah, I'm going to stay off camera so that we can see this procession lead right in front of the Rittman Police Department in downtown. There's been many law enforcement vehicles passing through. It's been like this for at least the past 10 minutes. It goes to show you just how many vehicles and different departments and law enforcement agencies are participating in this procession. I know that Catherine mentioned there's been many, and Dan, you mentioned at least 300-400. I believe that. We can still see them coming around the corner down there at the end of Ohio Avenue. That's where the Morton Salt facility is. But we've been here, we've been set up here in front of the Rittman Police Department since about 11:30 this morning. And just to see these people come out throughout the morning and afternoon waiting for this exact moment to pay their respects and honor Sergeant Scott Ries and his family and his friends. We know that police and law enforcement work together closely many times. So these are people showing up, showing their support for their community. This was definitely a tough hit for them, talking with some of these people that are lining the streets right now, and it's really interesting seeing all the different people, how they are paying their respects on the streets. Some just standing. We see some people holding flags with that blue stripe for police, and we also see some people with their hand over their hearts. We also have a fire department at the intersection right here on Rittman. We've got a few of the EMS and fire departments there as well for this procession. But of course, we'll keep this up for you. A lot more police vehicles coming up here on Ohio and Rittman. Dan, Nikki.
I just want to pause, if we can, just for a moment here to take this in. What a sight.
To have this many law enforcement from, and this is just not from the state of Ohio, it's not just Northeast Ohio. If you've ever covered one of these, if you've ever attended one of these, you can guarantee there are officers, law enforcement from as far as New York. You've got to have people from Indiana, from Illinois, probably showed up for this. I'm sure there's some from West Virginia and Kentucky. They flock for this. As we heard from Chief John Majoy earlier, this is a brotherhood. This is about supporting each other and about supporting the profession. This is about tipping the cap to the men and women who serve every day and risk their lives. Like he said, never knowing when they step out the door, was that the last time they said goodbye to their spouse?
Ultimately, this procession is going to end at Rittman Cemetery. Senior investigator Sarah Goldenberg is standing by outside the burial site.
Where this will be Sergeant Ries's final resting place, and we have begun to see law enforcement show up. You can see behind me we have some police cars from Doylestown Police. Just moments ago we had the motorcycle officers, a bunch of them from Cleveland Police as well as Parma Police. So a big show of support as we wait for the motorcade, or I should say the procession, to make its way here to the cemetery today. Here at the cemetery, this is going to be a more intimate gathering. This is going to be for the sergeant's family, his closest friends, as well as his colleagues, the local police officers here in the community, in the Rittman area, who have been so hurt and heartbroken over the loss of this officer. So again, we are waiting for Sergeant Ries to make it here to Rittman Cemetery. We expect to see a lot more police vehicles as well as motorcycles showing up in the next few moments or so, and we will keep you posted when he finally arrives at his final resting place. Reporting live in Rittman, Sarah Goldenberg, 19 News.
Dan and I have just been noticing when the funeral started around 1 o'clock, all of a sudden it began to just pour outside. It wasn't pouring outside the police station or the burial site, just outside of the church. Then as the procession was leaving, it dried up. As the procession was just about to leave, all of a sudden it started to rain. And right here at the police department, Keith Grant said as that hearse pulled up, it drizzled. And now Dan and I just noticing Sarah Goldenberg has that umbrella out. It's starting to rain at the burial site. It may just be an observation.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just what it is, but what a beautiful sight to see the police flag.
And a young man. I mean, that's, you know, might this be something that inspires other people to take the oath to become officers to serve? That is an incredible shot there. Just a young man paying tribute to each one of those officers. Think about what it means to them as they drive by and see that young man.
Yeah, paying tribute to the inspirational, heroic life of Sergeant Scott Ries.
We are going to continue our news as scheduled. Our 4 o'clock news will begin in just a moment.
call shading.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Sorry, the live view overheated and shut itself down. You got me now? All right, thank you.
Point.
First with breaking news. First with new information. Plus, your First Alert forecast. 19 News First at 4 starts now.
You heard, you know firsthand, your dad, your son, your husband, your brother. He was an amazing man. The community loved him. Everybody who knew him, everybody who interacted with him loved him.
Kind words from the Ohio Attorney General for a man who left his mark on this community and all over Northeast Ohio. Today, we remember a fallen hero, Sergeant Scott Ries.